The City Council meeting to order. Pastor Purtle, will you please come pray for us?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, all of the City Council persons, and everyone that's here tonight. Let us go before God in prayer. And I actually have a special prayer for us tonight. Heavenly Father, in our hearts we plan our course, but we pray that you establish our steps. I pray that we seek you for advice. Let us not make decisions based upon what we know, but let us act based upon your wisdom. Please guide us, Lord. We place our meeting in your hand. We place our hearts and our minds in your hand so that you may direct us. And Father, I pray for every council person here that bear the weight of God running this city. I thank you for the peace and the provisions that you have provided, and pray that you continue to do so. I thank you for every city employee, God, every law enforcement person, every fireman, God, every city person, God, that keeps our city running fluently. God, we thank you for that tonight. And we pray that you will be glorified in everything that's said and done. And we come against every spirit, God, that would try to disrupt or cause chaos. We pray that you will subdue it right now. God, that everything tonight and everything that's done and said will be done decently and in order. Now, Father, we know that in your word, you says that in the last days there will be wars and rumors of wars and ethnic groups against ethnic groups. And so we pray, God, for those that are in Ukraine that has been misplaced, those victims, God, their families. We pray that you will comfort them in only a way that you can, as well as those victims in Russia, God, that what's happening is beyond their control. We just pray, God, that you will take total control of the hearts of those leaders and that your will be done. And God, help us as a nation and as a world to support in whatever ways we can. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Pearl. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ryan, would you start us off?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Treasurer, would you please read the roll call?
Councilperson Alvarez.
Here.
Councilperson Podgorski.
Here.
Councilperson Geishhurst.
Here.
Councilperson Clem.
Here.
Councilperson Williams.
Here.
Councilperson Gully.
Here.
Councilperson Zilli.
Here.
We have the approval of minutes. We have two sets from January and February. You want to do those together or separately?
Actually, can we do them separately? Because I think Debbie had some questions on the January minutes.
Okay, we'll start with the January. Do we have a motion to approve the January 4th minutes?
I'll make a motion.
We'll need a second, please.
I'll second.
Is there
But-
any discussion?
Yes.
Yeah. On members present, Ferdinand was missing.
As in Ferdinand was there, but.
Yes, he
okay,
was
right.
physically there, but he was missing
Oh,
in the minutes.
thanks.
And then there was no mention of the positions for council president, vice president, et cetera, or the committees.
They're attached to the minutes.
I printed it, they were attached.
It was included in Dropbox
it
as
was
a
separate
full
thing.
document.
And then the only other thing on some of the votes, because most of us were here, but there were only 4 yeses, if all of us voted.
Well, how does, I think does it always say 5?
What was the
I
vote
wasn't
on,
sure if
if
you're-
I ask?
Well, I think if everyone is voting, do you record that everyone voted?
If everyone's here, yes.
So there
Right,
should
so
have been
everybody-
6 people present, right?
Right, because I think Pat, you were not.
So Ferdinand
Yeah.
is here.
Right, and everyone else but Pat.
So that would be 6.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Oh, I thought it was
So we just need to make sure that those are updated
Yeah, that's all.
from 4 to 6 yeses.
Right.
I don't think that there were any no votes. We can
There wasn't.
verify
Yeah.
that, but.
I re-listened to it,
Yeah.
so.
That's
So
it.
with those changes.
Do you want to just amend your motion to include amendments?
Yeah, I'll amend my motion to include the amendments made to the
January?
January minutes.
And I'll amend my second.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have the February minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I have a question and ask Colin Zilli why he abstained on the ordinance reading.
Because it affected a specific family member individually.
Now, do you sit in contracting
I-
negotiations?
I
Don't you have
do, yeah.
family involved?
My father's a police officer, yes.
Okay, why is it one you can sit in and not, and can't vote on the other?
Because
Turn around,
this
vote on
one
the contract,
specifically
correct?
affected an individual, separate from everyone else.
Okay.
The contract affects the entire bargaining unit.
All right, let me ask you this, was that individual's raise different from everyone else's?
I believe it was, yes.
I find that very strange, and that was your mother?
That was my mother, yes.
Okay, just so the public knows what's
So
going on.
that
with the
recommendation
raise.
came from the chief of police to the budget chair and the mayor. And I think your question should be directed to them, as I wasn't involved in it, and that's why I abstained on the vote. And I don't appreciate the insinuation here, Pat.
Well, it's obvious.
Okay, yeah.
We
This
have
is what
motion-
Jim Snyder used to do to me too. If you had a problem with it, you
Okay,
should have
okay,
brought that
order.
up.
We
But
have
you
a
weren't at the
motion.
meeting, so.
All right, guys, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? No. If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
No.
We have,
Debbie said she had one more thing on minutes.
We still haven't received December.
No, they're not easy to get through.
Okay.
I mean, you remember the meeting, right?
I do, and we do.
My vote
have
was no
minutes.
on that minutes.
Sorry, Pat. All opposed.
No.
Who made the original motion to approve? Was it Scott?
I think it was, Ferdinand, did you make the original
You
motion?
Scott?
on that?
Not on the second.
It was Scott, right? Scott, you made that
You
motion?
seconded. You said.
And I said.
No, I second it.
Okay, we have, we're all good there?
So,
We have communications, correspondence, and announcements from the mayor. Chief Candiano has some awards tonight, so we will use this time for him to present his awards to his officers.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chief.
You want me to just give the report real quick too, since I'm up here? It's pretty
Absolutely.
brief. Okay. A lot of good stuff in here today. For our total incidents for February, we were at 2,985, which puts us at 105 a day. So obviously that trend of staying busy is going up. I was kind of interested to see how this was going to relate to 2021 because obviously 2020 was such a weird year. I felt like last year's comparisons were a little off just because of the way 2020 started out. So where we're at now is, so with February 2022 compared to 2021, we were up 485 calls, which is about 16 a day. So continuing to be busy. I'll touch on that here in a second. Hiring and staffing stuff, we're looking pretty good. We've got 3 at the academy. We just released 1 officer to solo patrol. We've got 1 that still needs to be hired. We're down to 3 candidates, but I'm confident that we'll get 1 out of those 3. I believe the merit board meeting is in about 2 weeks where they'll make that job offer. We got 2 that are out on workman's comp from some injuries they sustained while working, and we've got the 1 that's still on the military commitment. So if you recall, 6 or 7 months ago, it was a lot more gloom and doom when I was standing up here. So we'll knock on wood and say we're doing pretty well so far this year. So I sent you guys some information on our crime numbers. So overall, our incidents were up 3,699 last year, but our overall crime was down. Mental commitment, substance abuse issues are still, continue to be major problems. I think that's a trend throughout the country. Traffic crashes were up. I think we're noticing just a lot more activity in the city as we grow and businesses grow. That's part of it. You get more people crash, unfortunately. So I think those are some of the things that are driving some of our increased calls, where it seems like some of the violent crimes have, we're not seeing the increase in proportion to the calls. So that's a good thing. And I'll say, that's a testament to the men and women we have working for us. They're out there, they're being seen, they're doing their job, and I think it's keeping some of that, the worst crimes are going elsewhere. So very happy with that. I'm still working on a year-end report, some of the highlights and things that went on last year, so I'll get that to y'all soon, but I wanted you to have those numbers. So that brings me to, like I said, this is going to be a short one, so I want to have Officer Seth Bollinger and Brian Graves come forward. I'm sure they're real excited to be on the hot seat here. So Officer Seth Bollinger and Brian Graves are receiving life-saving awards tonight for actions they took in January. These officers responded to a possible cardiac arrest incident and located a subject unconscious and not breathing. Officer Graves performed CPR and Officer Bollinger administered a shock from his AED. Officer Graves then resumed CPR until our fire personnel arrived on scene and took over care of the patient. So obviously I want to thank these officers for their actions. I also want to stress the importance of, having the equipment that we have, AEDs and things that were in the car. So the fact that Officer Bollinger had that, was very key in being able to save this life that day. So I just want to thank them and like to give them the opportunity to be honored in front of you all tonight.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. Thank you.
There's a description of the write-up, and here's the award for you. And then I've got some new pins on the way, so we'll get those to you. Congrats, sir.
Absolutely.
And same thing for you.
Thank you, guys.
Congrats.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And the last one, I'm going to have Corporal Laura Lightfoot come up. I'm sure she is also equally excited to be called up in front of y'all. All right, so I'm going to give you kind of the just some highlights of this incident, but I'm not going to go into super detail because of there was a lot involved in this. There's a lot of personal things that happened in this incident, and I don't really want the person that was involved to be plastered out there. But as I go through it, you'll kind of understand the seriousness of it. So what we're doing tonight is I'm going to award Corporal Lightfoot with an Honorable Service Award for actions she also took in January. Corporal Lightfoot and officers were dispatched to assist family members from North Carolina with trying to bring a family member home. It was clear this individual had been duped into coming to Indiana and was likely in a very bad and dangerous situation. However, it did not appear any crimes had been committed yet, so there was no legal justification for removing this individual from the situation. The individual had been seriously misled and was struggling with seeing the danger that they were in. However, Corporal Lightfoot was able to speak to the subject, put them in touch with their family, and ultimately convince them of the danger that they were in. This individual ultimately returned home the following day, and the subsequent investigation revealed that they had been in imminent danger. So since that time, I have received 3 letters of gratitude from this family from North Carolina. So our award for honorable service basically states that it's for actions and achievement which brought distinction to this individual and the department. I would say that by receiving these letters and from somebody out of state, she's made us all look good. So I want to thank her for that. So she is getting that award tonight. And I believe there were 2 other officers, I believe it was Officer Graves and Officer Hudson, that were also involved in this incident. They previously got Chief's letters of commendation for us. So Officer Graves, if he's still around, he needs to be thanked for this one too, and then Officer Hudson. So just tremendous work that they're doing out there. And again, this was an incident where we could have drove away because we really, there was, the call was completed as far as we were concerned, but they obviously took the extra step and definitely, made a huge impact on this family. So I am awarding you with the Honorable Service Award. There you go. So they are actually working patrol right now, so they're probably going to have to sneak out at some point, but I'm glad they were able to come and you all were able to honor them. Do you guys have any questions on the report?
No, I don't.
All right, thank you for your
I have
time.
a few questions on a few things.
Okay.
These life-saving, what'd you call those again?
AED, yeah.
Yes, I just, okay, now how long of a shelf life of those have?
I'm not sure. Can I defer to one of you all back there from the fire department on that, possibly?
As long as they pass recertification, they can ask for a resolution to sign.
Okay. Battery about 3 to 5 years. Yeah, battery lasts about 3 to 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure.
we liaison with them to get the equipment and kind of the upkeep. So it's kind of, we obviously have them and we know how to operate them, but it's kind of more their
Sure.
gig on dealing with them. So
Is there a
unfortunately,
preventive maintenance? When is these tests taken for passage? Monthly? Annually? Annually. Thank you.
I do have a question, Chief. Obviously, it was very important that we had this AED equipment on
Yep.
board. Do all of our police vehicles have it?
no. Captain Hughes, you got a number on that?
I believe we have 12 or 14 total. We have nearly 50 officers of patrol, so we can use more.
So we've tried to space it out so that there's a couple on each crew. We run, we have four patrol crews. Midnights is obviously a little different because of they stay on midnights. I think there's generally 15 officers on there, and then around 11 officers on the other crews. So we try to space it out so there's a couple out there, but obviously people are off or in training. There's less out there, so yeah, it's probably something that would be helpful if we had some more, but.
They're mobile then? You can move them from one vehicle to another?
Yeah, we could. So it's essentially like if you go to the Y, and they've got them there. It's essentially the same thing that they've got there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But those are fixed. They're there in one spot.
They're in a little case,
Yeah.
and they're in their cars. So,
Okay.
But you could have an officer who tonight decides he's going to take off tomorrow, and so he may not be here, so he wouldn't have anybody to give it to. So yeah,
Gotcha.
in a perfect world, we'd like to have more, but it is great that we've got them because we're out and about. So obviously the response time, could be very immediate if they happen to be, in their zone. The cars are, dispatched by zone, so the likelihood of having an officer, you know, within a closer radius is pretty high.
So we could use more.
We could always use more.
Mike, what do they cost each?
I gotta go back to you guys. Sorry.
The current state of the economy, I don't want to quote you a price.
What have they been costing, I guess is the question.
$15 to $100.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kowalczyk, could you repeat that?
1,500 to 2,000, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, it would be great to know how many more you would need to put one in every car that is out there, at least in patrol cars.
We could get that all to you tomorrow.
That'd be great to have.
Yeah.
I have another question. If you'd forward me your inquiry to the mayor of your pay salary list, did you have a recommendation to the mayor's office for pay raises?
For the clerk, yes, I did.
Could you forward that to me, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. That it?
That's it.
All right, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Mike.
Clerk treasurer's report, please.
I just have, the annual finance report was submitted today, it was due today, and, you know, I'll be able to roll over our system. I can't do it when anyone's in the system, so I'm gonna do that when I get home this evening, and then I can crank out corporation reports for you guys.
Great, good news, thank you.
Oh, and also, I know the mayor and I had talked previously, I talked to Councilperson Gully about this. If you guys are interested in reestablishing the cumulative capital development fund, we need you going on that. The deadline is May 31st to have everything submitted to the DLGF.
What would be the benefit?
We would realize approximately $130,000 more in that fund, and it's outside the levy, so it wouldn't impact any
Right.
funds.
I mean, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't. We should be doing it. So can you work with, I think that would be the ordinance committee, because it would require us to establish it.
I mean, it's templates from the DLGF.
Got it.
I can forward that to you guys, what the process is.
I mean, I'm fine putting this on the April agenda. I think, we need to do it. We need to realize the extra 130,000 about.
Especially come December.
Right. So I'm fine putting this on the April agenda.
And what line item would that be?
It reestablishes the cumulative capital development fund rate to 0.0333 on every $100 assessed value. It's not real impactful to the taxpayer at all. That's how the rate starts when it's at its full rate, and every year it dwindles down a little bit until you reestablish it.
Do you know the last time we reestablished it? It's been a while, right?
It's been a while.
And
I
so
don't
it will
remember
continue to
doing it.
dwindle to no
Right.
rate.
Right.
Nina, how close, are you guys done with end of year yet, or are you still working on it?
No, that's what, yep, I finished today,
Okay.
submitting it to Gateway.
Okay. Can you send me a copy?
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, I can send everyone a PDF.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, if we can just
Or I
have
can
that
print
for
them
the-
to next year, or next month, and then
Okay.
you guys can accept it.
Yeah, and then if we can just have the CCD rate reset,
Yep.
we'll consider that in April if we need to do it by May. I don't want to put us in a position where we miss the deadline. to do
Right,
it.
because
So-
there's publication requirements and timelines.
Right, right.
Fire Chief Wilkening, would you like to give your report, please?
Good evening, everyone. It's funny how y'all talk about the AEDs, and I would be remiss if I didn't happen to mention that I also received a shock from a police officer's AED, and it brought me back to life. So I have no problem with it. Okay, for the month of February, we were steady. We had 432 total calls. 313 of them were EMS, and fire calls, thankfully, were down to 3. Last year we were at 403 total calls. We did have 18 times where we had mutual aid last month, so down a little bit, but February usually is a down month. Total calls for the year is 1,025 calls, so 753 were EMS, 8 fire. So we are, total mutual aid calls for the year is 60. So for the 2 months, we've had 60 mutual aid calls. So we were up 148 calls for the year. Right now, we have 3 firefighters in our career academy. Lieutenant Crail is running that academy for us, or for the MAC. We have people in it. It's a career academy for the whole area, for the whole district. So it's a very good academy, and we're happy to be involved with it and having one of our own running it again this year. And we've also, as of today, we started a new hiring process list. So we're starting to send out applications. That goes all the way till April 8th. We're still in need of 3 people. So we have a couple possible retirements. So we will be needing people for that list. We have been increasing our advertising, offering more testing days to make it a little more convenient for people. So we're hoping all of this stuff will help attract more candidates, so that way our list can get bigger and we can actually have a list. And then we have talked to the ordinance committee today, and we're working on some things about restructuring our pay for probationary and second-year people. So I think that'll help a lot too. As far as assistance to our firefighter federal grant, we have no word yet on that. We still have a couple of things in, so we're not expecting anything for the next couple of months. Ambulance billing, we have started receiving some payments, but there's still a few snafus that are getting worked out. And we'll talk about the ARP funds later. Assistant Chief DeYoung will be giving a presentation about that. And then lastly, I'd like to talk about, we had a call last weekend on West Beach with the shelf ice. Just to remind everybody, that's gone now, but every winter it's there. It's super dangerous. I just want to commend everybody that was actually there. Everybody did a good job. We did have special thanks from all the Porter County dive teams that showed up. DNR, U.S. Park Service was there. The U.S. Coast Guard actually sent somebody out, and it was a big help from Lake County Sheriff. They brought their helicopter out and was helping us search, so that was a big help, but especially the Portage Police Department with their drone. They had a camera on their drone, and we couldn't get all the way out there, and it was a big help that they could actually run the thing to see if we could actually find anything going on. I also want to call out firefighter Vic Mercaldo and engineer Jason Seaford. They were first on scene. They recognized the danger. They quickly got into rescue suits, ice rescue suits, in case they were needed. We didn't put anybody in the water, but they were there and they acted very quickly, and that's the type of things that we like to see and that we are always prepared. Our crews did go out yesterday some more because the shelf ice is gone, and we went looking more, but so we'll continue. Any questions for me?
I do.
Yes, sir.
How long does a suit last and maintain integrity and safety?
Which suit? The
fire
ice
suits?
The fire suit or
the fire suits?
Our regular turnout gear?
Yeah.
We replace them every 10 years.
Every 10 years?
Yes, the NFPA recommendation is every 10 years. We rotate all of our gear out. We actually have a line item in our budget to replace gear.
Okay, thank you. But do all of our equipment up to snuff and running?
We are having some problems with some vehicles we're working through, and we have some other ideas about how to replace some of our other equipment. So.
And which ones are those, Randy?
Our rescue equipment is getting older, so we're looking at rotating that stuff out with battery-powered things.
Fire engines?
Fire engines, we're going to be talking about that in a little bit with the ARP funds about that. We've also, I know I've talked with a couple. I sent a letter out today wanting to meet with each one of you and then letting you know exactly what our needs are. And some of our ideas on how we can address those problems.
Good.
I met with Randy. He has the fire administration done a great job putting together ways to be creative with funding and how best to fund needs and services. So they've done a really good job.
Thanks, Randy.
All right, good?
Yeah, thank you.
All right,
Thanks, Randy.
Superintendent Reader.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Evening, Randy.
It is pothole season. So with the warmer weathers, everyone's experiencing a little bit of stress on our roads, on our older roads. So we do have many pothole crews out right now patching that. We'll be working through the next couple of weeks and getting that all taken care of and getting that back in order. The report for February, we had a record call in. We had over 1,010 phone calls coming to the department just in the month of February, which is a record. Usually we average about maybe 300, 350, but due to some of the storms that we experienced in February, there was a record number of calls that came in. Speaking of some of those storms, we had 3 storm events. February 2nd was the first big one. That was about that 10, 11 inch snow. Everyone remember that one? It took us about 3 days to clean up. Darren and I said, let's keep a log on our miles on our plowing equipment, just see how long it takes us, or how many miles we logged. We logged in that storm, that 3-day storm, 6,300 miles on our plow equipment. And they said, well, let's go to the next storm. Let's do it at the next storm. So the next storm that hit us was February 17th, and that was at 5 inch, and we almost logged in 5,000 miles on our snow plow equipment on that one. And then we had that 1.5 inches that came just this past week, February 24th, and we logged 2,390 miles on our snow. So just in the month of February, we logged 13,680 miles on our plow equipment to keep the streets of Portage clear from snow. So, so far to date, this winter season, we've used 2,700 tons of salt, road salts, throughout Portage. So that takes it for the street. And then for our sanitation department, the CNG grant, it's still on track. Just having some, I don't know what you call it, world market issues with the equipment, getting dates, builds, and stuff like that. So it's a pretty much a market issue. So anyone that deals with heavy equipment across the United States could verify this. But I'm working with Clean Cities on that, with Ryan Liskus and stuff like that. So no major updates on that. For our trash routes, we plan on still moving those boundaries. Everyone received that first letter in February. We got another letter going out to finalize that. That's going to be March 28th. If anyone's got any questions within that letter, on the back there's a map. It's just a guide, and there's some strict bold borders on that map. And if you know exactly where you're at according to those borders, you know what day you're going to be on with servicing. That's where we're going to keep it Monday through Thursday. So, but if anyone throughout the city has questions on that, they can call our clerk's office, and we're very good at telling them where they're at. So that's about it for everything else. I just wanted to bring up an up-to-date on one of our city employees, John Thurman. His daughter, Jordan, is having a heart transplant today. So John just texted me about a half hour ago. They delivered the heart, and they actually started beating the heart, and they're doing a verification on it right now, and they're getting ready for that transplant. So she's 14. Keep her in your thoughts and prayers. If anyone knows what it's like, I mean, very few people know what it's like to have one of your own children like knock on the door, stuff like that. So I mean, my heart goes out to him and his wife and the family. So keep them in your prayers and thoughts.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
Randy,
Any questions?
I had a question.
Yes.
So, on the trash routes, do we know about how many residents were affected by the change?
It's very minimal. There's approximately 4 subdivisions that are being flexed. Some of them are going back 2 days, and one of those subdivisions is going forward 2 days. So, but we're gonna work through those issues with those, you know, it'll take a few weeks to accustom that they're used to, so.
Randy, I had a
Yes.
question. On the trucks, have we applied for the NOFA grant yet, or are we still waiting? Is that still a ways out there?
That is not a ways out there. Right now, Ryan is just waiting for that grant to be approved through
Okay.
the board that runs those funds, so we can apply for it. But
And-
that is very promising.
I just wanted to mention to everyone that the Thurman family does have a GoFundMe page. If you know anybody that's had a heart transplant, very, very, very expensive, and they could use some help. So if you go to GoFundMe, the Thurman family's page is on there.
And then, Randy, one other one. So on the plow, the number of miles, I know we had talked about in one of the budget committee meetings in October, tracking the time spent plowing so we could code that to MVH restricted. Nina, Randy, have we been able to make that work? Because I know we were concerned about trying to code that time appropriately so MVH restricted could be used since it qualifies.
Well, at the end of the season, we have been keeping track of the guys, what shift they work, how many hours, everything else like that. So at the end of this winter season, I could submit all those numbers to clerk's office.
That would be perfect.
Yeah, I know that'll just help alleviate some of the pressure on the MVH side
Yes.
because of MVH restricted with the state splitting the funds basically in half. I know it was a hit to your budget. So. Perfect.
I have
Yes,
a
I
question.
Go ahead, sir.
Thanks. Regarding potholes, so I know that, it's pothole season and we're just trying to keep up and catch up. What's the process for like reporting a pothole? So if a citizen, would they just contact the street department, and then what's the, what you call it, the turnaround? Like how long does it take to get a pothole filled and that?
The process is simple. They can either email the department or they could call us. Or what we do is also is we've sent our lead men out to different zones and go through those streets and write down all those. So we do have a very accurate record of lists. So, and then we'll send those crews out to like zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It goes according to the snow zones. So we'll hit those zones, and it does take a few days to get to those because there are a lot. So.
And just for the record, could we have the email address? Just so
Yes,
that
it's
people are watching at home?
PSD@portage-in.com, or you can call us at 219-762-4564.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question on this natural gas vehicles.
Yes.
If you talk to Michigan City, they have these in place. And if you talk to any mechanics outside of just officials?
Actually, we have talked to Hobart. We've toured their facility about twice. We've sent our mechanics over there, and they've talked to their mechanics, and we sent a few drivers over there. They've talked to their drivers, so the employees are very involved in that process.
My response from the employees is they're junk.
Have you talked to our sanitation department?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, talked to the mechanics. They're not in favor of them. What would this cost
What-
the
did you
taxpayers
talk- wait, did
to
you talk-
revert the building to houses and maintain these new vehicles?
How much it would cost?
Yes.
We've not got those numbers yet.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Oh. Good to know.
Okay. I would encourage you, Councilperson Clem, to talk to Chris Podgorski and Brian Duca, who currently work on our current automation fleet.
Mhm.
So that I encourage you to talk to them. So
How many years' experience do they have?
they've got many years experience. Brian Duca has, I think, 12 years.
12 years?
Yeah. And Chris has worked on the automation truck for the past 3 years, I think. But they're very knowledgeable.
Good.
So
Well, I'd like to see some numbers on how much it would cost for the taxpayers to convert over to these natural gas vehicles and where the local stations are at for refilling and all this other sort of stuff.
Okay.
That comes all involved other than just getting a grant buying new vehicles. There's a
Yes.
lot involved, and it's a cost to the taxpayers to do it.
That's why we are seeking grant funds for those, so it'll be a lot less cost.
So the grants every year and helps maintain the vehicles and builds a new building to house these things. Can you store those indoors?
No, you cannot store.
You
them.
cannot.
No.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I still have a few more questions. I've seen a report that you had put out on our snowplow status.
Yes,
Originally, years ago, I think we had like, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, 12 to 14 snowplows?
that is correct.
That is correct?
Yes.
How many do we have
Good.
today with a much larger city?
We have a total of 7 large trucks and 5 F-550s, so total.
And 2 of the large trucks are about written a sentence and needing replaced.
Our oldest, 2 oldest trucks are from 2012.
And they're at the end of their life. You put it in writing that you had someone do a survey on them and they're maybe last 1 more year. Is that correct?
I didn't have anyone do survey, I asked.
Or
for some
however
advice.
language you use, but you had it mechanically inclined serviced, and they said it may last 1 more year.
Yes, one of our trucks, 303, is at the end of its life.
Okay, but there's one right shortly after that, because there's 2 of them highlighted.
Yes,
Yeah,
325.
okay. All right, so there's 2, not just 1. So that'll put us down to 5 on a growing city. Am I
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
Okay. So how many do you think we really need and operate to keep our communities safe for people that need to get to work instead of 3 days later plowing their streets out? People have emergencies. They go to work. I myself am very embarrassed on how these streets were plowed this past winter. 3-4 days, people are telling me, calling me that they're still not plowed out. Is that true?
3-4 days, 3 days at the very most on the 10 to 11 inch.
Is that just your primary and your secondary, or is that including your cul-de-sacs?
That's everything, yes.
It
That's
is?
cul-de-sacs and everything.
Okay, because I got pictures, and it's dated from when the snow fell and when this guy took the picture, and this cul-de-sac was not done. So, it's either missed, presumed it was done, accidents happen, but just to let you know that maybe we should purchase more snowplows. I think we're in very desperate need of snowplows for this community. 3 or 4 of them maybe, you think?
I agree with that, but that, the
Minimum.
council would have to decide that.
Yeah,
Yes.
but you agree with 3 or 4 minimum for our next steps by the year 2026?
We need plow equipment,
Yeah,
yes.
we do, very badly. And I know we have smaller trucks that do the intersections. You know, clear out the Ys where the big plows don't get. You have little small trucks that come around and do the cleanup stuff, right?
All our trucks do the cleanup, so.
Okay. Well, there's some snow plows. I don't know if they were just doing it for the heck of it, but they were cleaning up some intersections, and every stop sign and street sign is pushed over. Mine's been that way for a year, since last winter, year before. They've never been fixed, and they're right on Central Avenue. Drive by them every day. Right across the street from City Hall, in fact. And then also on the S-curve, where the JC building used to be, on Central Avenue, you make that S-curve up around, go around the creek?
Yes,
Okay, back around over by the heating department there, that business, that heating and cooling. Right across the street's a branch that fell, a tree, and it's sticking all the way out to the edge of the roadway. It's been there for probably 3 weeks now. And I know officials, you yourself have driven past this, and many street department individuals, police, fire department, everyone. If someone hits that and goes through the window, it's gonna spear someone. And if you look at it, you go by there tomorrow morning, it's been hit, and it's all splintered back. I just hope it's not your family that runs into it. Safety is priority to me in this community. And I see it's taken back seat for the last 2 years. You drive around and look around this community and you'll see for yourself. People are not dumb. And I want to correct it in my zone. I stand up for my residents. You think that's funny?
You haven't been to a meeting since September.
So why is this direct to me? Is this the way how you bullies work? Is you always point the finger at someone else? It's my fault that the city's a mess?
10 years on the city council.
And that's why I'm speaking. You're right. Thank you. So anyways, would you address those issues?
Yes, I will.
And I'd like to see if we can get a quote for 4 snowplows
I've submitted one.
today for 4?
For 4? Just
Yeah, I'd
multiply
like to
that
know
number
what
by
4
4.
cost. They run about $250,000 a piece, right?
Yes, I've
Multiply it by
done a
4.
quote.
You have one, you have a copy of it.
All you have to do is multiply that by 4.
Okay, good, thank you. Well, it's just,
Anything else?
let's just sit here amongst all these other papers. Is that what you put down here?
Thank you, Randy.
Thanks, Rand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Attorney Whitten, do you have any?
Not much, Madam Mayor. Just want to let the council know, I mean, some of the stuff I can't talk about in a public meeting, pending litigation, things we're handling, employee issues. That's sort of an ongoing, everyday affair that we're just sort of working our way through. But what I can talk about is that negotiations have started. It will be a multi-year contract. There's some debate as to how many years that will be, but in any case, we've had our first meeting with the police bargaining unit. Our second meeting is set for Thursday for a follow-up meeting. And then later on this month, we have our initial meeting with the utilities. So I'll keep the council advised as those sort of work their way through.
Thank you, Dan.
That's all I have.
I have a question regarding negotiations.
Yes.
Who is privy to these discussions? So is it just yourself and the leadership of the departments, or can council members sit in?
So I will tell you, I don't care. So what I want is a council representative, someone with financials from the clerk's office, and the department head. I think if we can get those 3, it's up to the council who you want to be there, and it's, frankly, it doesn't bother me. I just don't want a quorum.
Right,
Yeah.
so there can only be 1 council member then, or can there be?
There could be 2.
There could be 2. Okay. Thank you.
So, yeah, and I'm happy to, chat with you as it moves through. And honestly, I'd love to hear the input of the council members on this because it's a multi-year contract, and if we hit sort of an impasse or like we did last time, if we hit some sort of bumps in the road, I would ask for an executive session because under the statute, collective bargaining discussion is acceptable for an executive session, and we can kind of.
Which I think we did twice in the last round.
That's correct. So I'm open to more input than less.
So I've been sitting in on those. Historically, the council president is who's sitting in on negotiations. Sue sat in on them as council president. So I've been sitting in on those. If you're interested, if anybody's interested in sitting in, we can have 2 members there. I think it's important to note the mayor's office negotiates contracts. The council approves the contracts. We have a voice. There's an ordinance that allows for that. But the contracts are negotiated by the mayor and the Board of Works. So that's who that's why Dan is negotiating the contract. But I sit in on those. Anybody's welcome to. They're during the day. So I recognize it may not be possible for every council member to be there. I happen to work from home and have the ability to be there. Debbie has sat in on them. Scott sat in on them. I think Brian maybe last time. Pat's done it in the past.
Well, now, I have a question.
Sure.
When you're through, please.
Go ahead.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
I would like to see a better policy as far as setting up these meetings instead of a 10-minute, 15-minute prior to. Maybe we can give like a 48-hour notice so us council members and the parties that are involved have a little bit more time to prep
For-
and or attend a
For
bargaining.
negotiations?
Yes, instead of 10 minutes till, hey, can you meet before lunch?
I've never
That's,
done that.
they're not scheduled
Okay,
10
so,
minutes
so
before.
we can give
scheduled
a
the
48-hour notice without a problem?
So here's the deal. I mean, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, Pat. But let me just tell you this. I meet with the union, I get possible dates, I send those dates to the respective department head weeks in advance and the council president. And it's hard to get dates that work for everybody. We coordinate the dates with everybody's schedule in mind. It's never 10 minutes before. I have no idea what.
Well, I've never received any of those emails.
Well, because
and
you're
I'm
not
a
the council,
member.
you're not the council president.
Right.
So, talk to Colin.
Okay, will you make sure I'm attached to those emails?
I mean, we can't have every council member attending
No,
negotiations.
I get that,
Okay,
but I
just to be
would like
clear.
to choose a
I
choice
mean,
if I have one.
you're welcome to sit in on them. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what you think it's going to accomplish, but you're welcome to sit in on them. Our next negotiation, I believe, is Thursday at 1 o'clock. Can you make Thursday at 1 o'clock?
I don't know yet.
Okay. Well, it's Thursday at 1 o'clock at the police department. You're welcome to sit in. I think we're negotiating
Okay.
streets in 2 weeks in another meeting with police. We will
It's
gladly
nice to
send those your
know
way.
that we're all
Yep.
contacted and see if we're available.
Pat,
to meet.
the council has never been made aware of every single negotiation.
I've
I've
asked
been on the
every
council
year.
6 years, you've been on the council for 12
I
years.
can't have.
Never been negotiated
Listen,
that
guys,
way.
let's be clear.
Let's be civil.
It's difficult to negotiate contracts. We've all been down that road. It's a hard thing to do. All right. Now, I need a contact person for the council. I can't have 4 councilmen showing up. That's a
Right.
meeting.
I get
So,
that.
so I just go to the council president and have him, delegate somebody to go, delegate somebody to go. I just need to know who's coming. Because honestly, guys, if you're coming to the meeting, you're part of our bargaining team. So I like to know who's coming. I like to have an opportunity to discuss with you guys what, the issues that we see are pressing, caucus, all that kind of stuff goes on. So as long as I know who's coming, and as long as it's not 4 people, I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine.
But all I'm trying to get across is we should be notified so we have options of whether if we're available or not to attend, not blown off completely. I asked Council President that question, if you'd start notifying.
Certainly.
Please? Thank you.
We can certainly do that, but I just need to make clear, we can't have more than
I get the
3
law.
people in
I
in
get
the
what a
room.
quorum is.
So,
Or more than 2, right?
well, no, it can be 3 as long as
Okay.
3 members aren't
I
on a
thought it was
committee
just-
together.
I thought you just said it was going to be 2.
Well, historically, we've only ever had 2 people in the room,
Okay.
but I mean,
So
anybody's
the only-
welcome to attend these
Yeah,
meetings.
so,
It's-
and then the other thing is, I would ask, is that if we're going to attend, stay attending, because what's really
Right.
disruptive is if my bargain, I see this in other municipal bargaining that I've dealt with, if the bargaining team changes sort of midstream, it's really difficult. So my suggestion, Pat, and anybody else that's interested, maybe, it's a tremendous scheduling commitment to do them all. So if there's one that you find, you have more availability, maybe pick one. Pick the police, pick the street, pick utilities, see it front to finish. It would be a daunting task to pick them all. It's just kind of my thinking. So I would love to have more input, more, it's fine. I'm totally open to that.
Well,
Because
this is why I'm bringing this to attention, Dan.
Yeah.
Is because last time, only very few individuals knew anything about a contract. Then we had a executive session and had to vote on it that night or within the next day or something like that.
That's not what happened.
Hold on.
That's
So-
not what
Pretty
happened.
close.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, but
it's
how
not.
many folks to go through all this, not have a clue?
So to be clear, that's I want to clarify this. So last time, as things went on, I did send out an email to everybody saying, listen, I'm bargaining, if you have any thoughts, you have any suggestions. So several council members did call me, and I did talk to you guys at length, and Pat, you and I even talked to you at
Yeah,
one
we
point.
did, exactly.
So, yeah, I am, it's, more information is better, because as Colin indicated, ultimately the contract is approved or denied, the contract by the Board of Works, but I bring it to the council for approval too, because unless you flatline raises, it requires a change in the salaries, so it makes good sense to me that we have
Sure.
both boards approve it. So I'm open to, all the input you guys want to give.
That's all I have.
Everyone has Dan's
That's all
email,
I'm
everyone
asking.
has Dan's phone number.
So let's,
He
and
takes
it's gonna
calls
be.
all hours of the day and night. Trust me, I call Dan all the time.
You get the calls.
I talk to Dan more than I talk to family sometimes.
So yeah, Pat, your point's well
Yeah,
made.
I just,
on-
okay, thank you, that's
yeah.
all I ask, a little bit more transparency.
Yep.
So if we can make it, we can, if not, then.
Madam Mayor,
forward.
that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Barb?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
That's a lot to follow.
Is it though?
I don't have much of a report. We'll report for you guys tonight. But the warmer weather has brought out a few basic fishermen that have been fishing the waterway and going out into the lake now that the shelf ice has melted. And right now, we're going to start our spring cleanup at the marina. That involves inspecting the docks, replacing boards, fixing light towers, rub rails, and replacing dock boxes as needed. The water will be turned on between April 1st and April 15th, depending on the weather. Again, there's still going to be a freeze. We officially open April 1st, and the first few occupants are generally, we get about 3 or 4 fishermen in that want to get in on the early spring catch. But the marina did survive winter. We had no dock damage, which is really good. No poles were damaged, but we did spring a leak in the public restroom. The pipes above the men's public bathroom broke, but we had that real hard freeze. Usually we leave a door open so that it does get a little bit warmer up there, but it didn't. So we're going to have to replace some ceiling tiles and paint the floor. Nothing major, just some minor repairs that we pretty much go through every year. And that's about it. Any questions or anything?
I do. I know, Barb, you do a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
You had mentioned in the past few years that our piers some were really getting in bad shape. Have those been replaced or repaired, or are they safe?
They're safe, Pat, but they're coming towards, they're guaranteed for 25 years, and the marina, I think, is 22 or 23 years old. We're looking at not fully replacing the piers in their entirety, but replacing the foam cushions underneath.
I see.
We've got a couple options that we received from the company that made those docks back in the 90s, and they're like a floating type device. It's way less expensive than spending $200,000 for a single pier.
Sure. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, so we're looking at that, and we've got some some basic designs from the company that we deal with up in Michigan. So when we'll have to cross that bridge in the next couple of years.
Okay, good. Now, do you have you say you got an estimate on that?
Yeah, it's around, I think, between $5,000 and $7,000 for each pad.
Sure.
And I do believe the docks require either 2 or 3 pads. I'm not really sure about the underneath structure, how many they require.
Yeah.
But
some of those may even need to be replaced in order to.
Some of the docks might even need to be replaced in its entirely. We did replace the public launch area, the launch ramps. They've been replaced. We've got new launch ramps in, but they're a little bit on the short side, so we're going to have to weld extensions because of the water, the way the lake is up and down. There's so much fluctuation that we're going to have to weld some extensions on those launch ramps so that they can be elevated, and then you can put them back down. There's a device at the end where you crank them up or you can crank them down.
And I was also asked a question, excuse me. Did you, I know we discussed this a few times as well, about a kayak ramp or loading or unloading?
Yes.
Area outside the boats?
Yeah, we, currently people that kayak on Lake Michigan, they come to our marina and they use the public launch ramp. But that's kind of dangerous when you've got power boats and kayakers, coming and going at the confluence. So I was working with the mayor on a kayak launch. There are three places that the kayak launch could go. I'd like to see it at the marina, but I've recently been told that the Northwest Indiana Paddlers and the National Park Service really would like to see it at the Portage lakefront. That would be their first choice. The second choice would be the old U.S. Steel Supervisors Club.
Yeah, sure.
And then our location, they really don't like because the confluence, the East Branch and the West Branch and all the traffic. I still think that we could do it there, but if they're not going to want to do it.
Yeah, they're out there trafficking through with the big boats. And things like that.
Yeah. So I know we really want a new we want a launch ramp somewhere.
Have you got any
kayak.
bids on that at all at either one of those locations?
No, not yet. The kayak launches, the whole ramp here, the whole facility, the whole thing is less than I think $60,000. And there might even be grant money available for that because it's considered public use, as long as you don't charge a fee or anything.
Yeah. Would you forward all that information to me, please?
Sure, I will gladly.
Thank you.
I will gladly.
I would just like to recognize our marina. I know I was at the Fish On show, and Barb was there representing the marina, and thank you for
Thank you.
attending.
It was enjoyable. I met a lot of nice people.
And, you know, our marina has been received the distinction of being a clean marina. That may be not the right term, but that's not an easy distinction to maintain and to receive. So you've done a good job, staff's done a great job of receiving that distinction. It means a lot because it helps keep our waterways clean, and we appreciate your effort.
We do our best to maintain a clean marina and also to inform the public that we are a clean marina and what they can do as a either a slip holder or a visitor, you know, what you can do to keep your trash out, not to change your oil, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, do a good job with that.
Thank you.
Scott, do you have the vote? You have the vote, don't you?
I sold it.
Did you?
He sold it.
You gotta use them.
Yeah, all right. I thought you did. I didn't know.
Thanks,
you sold it.
Barb.
Anything else? No?
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Did I miss any department heads? I know that Lori is at school this week. She is at a week-long Parks and Rec school, so she's getting further education on Parks and Rec. And AJ did submit a report to the council. You should all have that report.
Yes.
Very good.
Reports from standing committees.
Yes, Madam Mayor, our ordinance committee did meet. It's a standing meeting. We meet at 5 p.m. prior to each council meeting. And I'll just review some of the topics that we made some decisions on and recommendations that will come forth to the council in April. We discussed and pretty well finalized our recommendation for the mobile food vendor, at least in respect to how some input that the parks gave us on what they want to see in that ordinance change. So, and then we still have to address mobile food vendors that are outside the park's jurisdiction and may even be at a private home. So we'll take another step in regard to that mobile food vendor, and we'll discuss that in more detail in April, but you will see before the council in April's agenda the mobile food vendor as it applies to the park's jurisdiction. The other area that we got discussion in and is going to will bring forth a recommendation is editing our current ordinance in respect to Medicaid reimbursements. So on the floor there will be an ordinance presented to the council for their review and discussion on that topic. The third area that we discuss also affects the fire department, and right now there's no language in non-emergency type calls, so we can't even bill for non-emergency type calls, and there's a definition of where non-emergency falls. So you will see before you in April a billing recommendation for ALS non-emergency and basic life support, non-emergency. So we'll be able to at least bill for those categories and hopefully generate some more revenue. Debbie, Brian, is there anything you want to add?
No, we tabled a couple other things.
Right.
Which had to do with the sidewalks and the deforestation. We're still waiting on more information. So
Yeah,
those are tabled right now.
In the essence of time, I just want to review the things that we discuss or are becoming to the council. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Scott. That's a great report.
I have a question for you, Scott.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask all the chairs. I've already put a little bit of an email out there. Can I get all the minutes? You're the chair of that meeting, of that committee?
Yeah. Debbie keeps the minutes and she can forward those too.
From back to January of 21, please?
Well, some you would have. You were on the committee. You would have all the 2021s. You were on the committee.
Would you forward them to me, please?
Again?
Yeah.
Sure.
Anything else?
No, that's it for me. Thank you.
Deb, do you have a budget chair meeting update?
No, not right now.
Are you the chair? I have a question for Debbie though, please. Debbie, are you the chair of the budget committee?
Yes.
Could I get all of your minutes for your meetings back to January of 21?
Dan, would you like to
Um,
count? for that? We did something in January to
Yeah, so
stress
what we,
that?
yeah, yes, Pat. What the council passed in January, and I'm not entirely sure the council needed to do it, but for transparency. So for all the budget committee meetings that occurred, there were memoranda, which the statute allows or minutes. And basically it says who was there, where was there, when was there, and what was discussed. And I think that the council approved all of those in January, so.
And I sent those to you last night. You got them in January.
Yeah, thank you. So that should be it.
Okay.
Anyone else have questions? If not, we have no unfinished business.
Actually, Mayor, there's one thing, Nina, apologies, I know I didn't make it on the agenda. It's the revised COVID policy that I sent last night. This is left over from last meeting. So I did send this to you all. Dan, did you have it up? Did you want me to just read the change?
So, sure, you can. So this is sort of a continuation of the conversation that we had at the last council meeting, I believe it was, with some concerns, candidly, very specific about, we passed the ordinance in like January 3rd or 4th and retroactive it to January 1st. There were a couple of folks that had become COVID positive in that interim and that hadn't been boosted. So there were some questions as to how we can handle those folks. So I tried to find the shortest path between 2 points to sort of address some of what the council, several of you reached out to me actually, and I just made it what I think to be the simplest if you so choose to embark down this path. And do you want to read it, Colin? Or?
Sure. So it just changes and says for all COVID positive cases occurring after January 14, 2022, the employee shall have received a booster shot when recommended and eligible according to the CDC, NIH at the time of the COVID leave request, which shall mean within 6 months of the second Pfizer Moderna shot or after the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, vaccine shot, sorry. So this would simply move it by 10 days. So it will capture those that didn't have the booster between when we changed the policy to say you had to have a booster. So it captures those so they can qualify for their COVID leave. But then after January 14th, so it would, if there's anybody else that fell into the 10 days between January 4th and January 14th, they would also qualify. But after January 14th, you had to have your booster. That was 10 days after we passed the policy at the council meeting.
I have a question on that. Is that legal?
Is what legal?
To mandate someone to have their shots?
So here's the thing. You can't go and say, if you want to continue working here, you have to get your shots.
Right.
That's not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is we're saying, hey, listen, if you want this extra benefit, you have to have your shots to get it. And that is legal. It absolutely is. Nobody, let's be clear, nobody is entitled to COVID leave before this policy. There's no statutory or constitutional entitlement to the COVID leave policy. It's totally at your guys' discretion. I've seen this in lots of places, including Porter County, frankly, but to encourage folks to get vaccinated.
Sure.
Now, and I've also seen it in a lot of private industry because also it's not only a health and safety thing like we talked about before, but for an employer standpoint, not so much talking about government, but from a private employer standpoint, it could be a cost thing. You know, they don't want their employees to get COVID and be off for weeks because then they have to fill that spot. So they encourage their employees to get vaccinated by offering an additional benefit. That's what this is.
But let me ask you this, I guess, in a different fashion then.
Yeah.
Would it be discrimination if someone got it and you turn them down of getting this pay, or whether if they got the shot, they say, okay, we'll give it to you? Is that discrimination?
So I can answer that question. First of all, no, but
Okay.
it would take a lot longer to explain what discrimination really is. This does not create disparate treatment of anybody in a protected or suspect class, so that doesn't conjure up any ADA problems, doesn't conjure up any Fair Pay Act problems, doesn't conjure up any racial or ethnic origin problems, none of that. So it's absolutely not discrimination.
Okay, that's just asking a question.
Yep.
I mean, there employees that aren't vaccinated can use vacation, MI time, vacation time, sick time. They have time off. We're just saying we are not going to cover that if you're not vaccinated. We're willing to offer you, I think it's 14 days.
But again,
Is it 14
you
days
have
or
two
10
different
days?
conditions.
Well, it's a discretionary benefit. The employer decides who qualifies for this benefit, and the council voted on this last year at some point, I can't remember when it was, that you had to have your vaccine to qualify. If you don't have your vaccine, you can use your own time to be off. You can use MI time, in fact, but we're not going to give you this discretionary benefit. I mean, my employer does the same thing. I don't get to use my COVID leave unless I had my vaccine.
Well, so does US Steel, but they lose their cases every time it goes to arbitration. They end up paying.
Well, they're a private employer.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion to amend the policy as I read just a few moments ago.
So I have a question. You know, this has been a topic that has been discussed, you know, over the course of several meetings. And my question is just, have city employees been consulted or talked to about this? Because it always seems that we vote on something and then city employees are like, well, wait a minute, you know, we didn't or we weren't consulted. Just wondering if that has been done so that we can finally move forward on this issue.
I've had conversations with the fire department multiple times about this. They're the ones, them and police, have been affected by this the most. So yes, I've had conversations. Dan's had conversations
Were there
with
like
department
meetings
heads.
or just like
So
conversations?
here's the thing. I mean, great question. The answer is yes. So I sent the policy out to all the department heads. I also sent the policy out to union representatives. And frankly, the night we passed it the first time, after a lot of discussion, I literally emailed it to the union as right seconds after we passed it. So, and then to Colin's point, I've probably had 100 conversations with employees that have called me looking for clarification, asking questions, those sorts of things. But a lot of it has trickled down from the department heads to their respective employees.
And I think I mean, it evolves over time. You can't foresee every single issue that's going to come up. I mean, things change, booster change things. I mean, you can't foresee every individual circumstance.
And understand, this amendment that you're being presented tonight is born of conversations with the employees. I mean, this is really a response to conversations with the employees.
Glad to know. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? We have a motion by Colin. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Colin, seconded by Deb. Is there any further discussion?
I would just like to ask Mr. Klein to come up, not to call you, but if you could please, Scott. Not to complicate this, but I think this COVID policy mainly affects the firefighters, and my concern is, and maybe others' concern is, that this amendment that we're proposing tonight, does it, in your opinion, by extending that time period, take into consideration those 2 or 3 people that sort of...
I think it would have had it started that way from the beginning. So, and the January 14th date is, I think, slightly arbitrary. I don't know where that came from, but the main complaint after the January 4th meeting, the main complaint was the booster was added and no one had any notice. So anybody that didn't have the booster, because in September, October, when the first COVID policy was approved, you're fine with it, and everybody was operating under that. And then on January 4th, a booster was added with no time to become compliant. And so then we had, because we had, I think, 2 guys between January 1 and 4 get it, and another guy got it like January 16th. So, you know, that guy's going to not be included now. But we didn't have time to become compliant. And that was the main complaint at the beginning of January. So And the policy is solid. It's just we didn't have time as employees to get compliant and be
Right,
able
and
to.
So now
that was the
That's all.
conversation we had, recognized it.
Yes. And
Here is the amendment.
And when we talked prior to last month's meeting, I thought you agreed that, giving a 2-week period or some set of time was
Right.
appropriate.
We
And then
should have done that.
And then it
That-
didn't happen
yeah.
in February.
Yeah,
So
it was an
that's why I was
oversight on our
frustrated.
part. I mean, in hindsight, yeah, we should have given more time to become compliant, but no one brought that issue up
So the
and no one
two
thought about it.
individuals that were affected, will we fix those?
Well, yeah, I think.
Yeah,
If this-
the two
yeah.
between the 1st and the 4th, I believe,
Fourth,
would then
yeah.
be covered. And then the one seems like he won't be the one that had gotten, I think it was the 16th. I don't know exactly the date.
Well, I mean, in that case, he had notice.
Technically, sure.
He
Yes.
had notice.
So,
All right, thank you, Mr. Fine, appreciate it.
I have another question too, or opinion. We have people that have worked for our city that are religious and have religious beliefs. I
There's
think
a
we're
religious
interfering
exemption.
with that.
There's an exemption for religions in the
Okay,
policy.
I just want to make sure that there's, because I don't like the part of how it's almost like we're trying to force them to make decisions in order to survive
Well,
for
no,
their
they're
family.
able to take time off, Pat. They can use their
But
sick
see,
time,
now they
their
gotta
MI
go
time,
take
their
their
vacation
vacation time off when the next person
No,
don't.
MI
That's my
too.
point.
We're in-
MI as well.
Fair, they can take
just-
MI.
So here's what I've been doing.
Please.
So if somebody is COVID positive and doesn't qualify for the COVID leave, I'm still approving their MI, their major illness, so that they don't have to go and use.
To
vacation.
their, okay.
Right.
Thank you.
But if they don't have major illness, they have sick time, they have
Right.
vacation
We've
time, they have
really been-
plenty
we
of
haven't
personal
had- we haven't
days.
had-
That's
Everybody
where
that
I was, yeah, they shouldn't have to give up and others don't.
I mean, most people have MI time. There are some employees, I think there was a firefighter. He was brand new. He didn't have MI days. He hadn't
Well, see,
earned
that's
any.
another
So
thing.
he had to go, I think, to negative in sick time or personal time. But I mean, we can't craft a policy to every single individual employee. If we did that, we'd be crafting 300 policies. I mean, this is what we came up with. I mean, it took us a long time to come up with this.
I get that,
So,
I get that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Under new business, we have the ARP plan discussion.
yes, so this is on the agenda. We originally brought the plan to the council back in November, based on the guidelines at the time, which required, and Scott handed out a very helpful document about where you can spend the money and what you can spend it on. The guidelines were very, I wouldn't say restrictive, but they were restrictive. Cities, counties, township, or towns have been dealing with this for months. In January, I think, late January, Nina, is that when the final rule came? They changed the rule to allow for a standard allowance of up to 10 million to use on any governmental service. So now we have the ability to use 10 million, up to 10 million. Ours was 8.32, somewhere in
Some
the
change, something like that.
8.32 on any governmental service. So it's broadened what we can use these funds on. I mean, for example, you weren't able to use it on a lot of things. You couldn't buy equipment. You couldn't go out and, unless it was COVID-19 specific. So we had to really come up with a plan that fit within the law. Now they have opened the guidelines up in January. So we're coming back now to the council to get some input. And then I'd ask that the council schedule a special meeting for ideally the 16th if possible, but we can talk about dates for additional public input. We want to give the public enough time to know now that there's a meeting coming on the 16th to get public input, now that we can use these funds broader.
Does that include equipment?
Yes, so
It does
now we can use up to 10 million.
It
Any
didn't,
government,
but it does
yeah,
now.
we can use up to 10 million. I believe the fire chief is gonna have a presentation. I think Randy's gonna talk about this. We can now use this on equipment. We have more ability to use these funds than on city services than we did back in November. Back in November, I mean, we were being creative and connecting some of these to COVID or community development. That's where Founders Square came from, the additions to Founders Square. The kayak launch is in that plan that we passed. I think there's a bunch of things in that plan, but now we have the ability to open this up and talk about, okay, what are our real needs now that we can use these funds in a more broad way? What else do we need to do? So, opening it up to the council for thoughts, and then I know at least 2 department heads had some thoughts to bring forward, and then we'll have that public meeting that I'd like to have a schedule tonight so we can make sure the public knows that that's happening. And then we'll come back again in April, hopefully with an additional appropriation for at least some of the things we identified tonight and next week or 2 weeks from now, so we can get some of these funds out the door, because there are some real critical needs that we need to appropriate some money for. So.
You said the 16th of March?
Yeah, I was looking, Dan, we were planning on the 15th, but I think Dan has a school board meeting, so he was hoping that we could do the 16th. But if the
I'm off
15th
that
works
day.
better for us, then I think Dan might be able to move the meeting. He's already talked to his school client, so. I'd like to just hear from the council of what day might work best that week. Just cognizant of time, because we would have to do a public hearing notice for the April meeting. So I want to make sure we give Nina enough time to get that to the papers.
I am off on the 16th, so I'm open.
I'd have to get what, I'd have to let you know.
Okay, can you, if possible, Pat, by tomorrow, so we can get this notice? I just want to make sure we try to get this with enough notice.
I'll try.
Okay. I mean, can we set it and then hopefully it works out? I mean, I really want to get, because tonight we're looking for council input. I think at the next meeting it would be input from the public specifically. There will be 2 other items that are time sensitive that came from the ordinance committee that I'm hoping we can also do on that agenda. The Medicaid reimbursement and what was the other one?
The designation.
Oh, yeah. So
infrastructure, is that's on there as well for our community, is infrastructure?
So my understanding, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, Nina, I know you've been reading this and attending the webinars. It's any governmental purpose, as long as the law doesn't prohibit it specifically, which I think that is increased pension contributions, paying off debt. There's a few of them. There's not too many prohibitions. But now prior to this final rule, it was much more restrictive. It was much harder to identify something that fit within the law. So we had to get creative.
So the other thing that we're going to need to attack over at our special meeting is sort of plan. We've received a petition for annexation by a property owner, and statutorily the council has to have a meeting to discuss that within 30 days.
Right.
So I would suggest
Thank
that
you, Dan. I forgot
we
about
just
that.
handle that at a special meeting as well.
Well, there's time restraints. I think it can't be done until the April meeting.
It has
That's
to
what
be.
it said.
It has to be. We have to have our initial meeting within 30 days by statute. Otherwise,
well, we could have it by and then can't we push the decision to April, right? I think
We have to talk.
We have to accept the petition within 30 days at a public meeting. Yeah. So we'll do that at the special meeting, and then we can consider action in April, right, Dan?
That's correct.
Because I don't want to rush that whole process. That's a whole discussion about.
If we don't accept it and have at a public meeting within 30 days, the petitioner has rights, and one of those rights is to, after 60 days, petition the circuit court to make the decision for you.
And we don't want to.
I would suggest we don't do that.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that we bring it up at a special meeting, at least to identify the petition and then make the decision on what our next step wants to be.
Colin, you guys know what we've spent so far?
I think you.
I sent that out.
Yeah,
it was the only thing that's been spent was the premium pay. A couple of pay invoices, the cybersecurity policy, and the lexical.
Debbie has it right here.
The server in there?
Yeah. That was a correcting entry.
It's not a large amount. I think it's only.
So we only have spent $364,127.33. That's just the first round. We still don't have the second round. We won't
No,
get that until July or August.
That is cash out the door we appropriated back in December. When did we do that? December. I think.
But that was for last year, so.
8 million?
they're done.
Right, so we had appropriated already for, within the plan, Founders Square.
About $1.5 million.
What else was on that? I'm struggling to remember at this point.
Well, this is all we show that we have.
I think the appropriation was about $1.5 million.
Yeah, I think it was the premium pay, Founders Square, a few small items. I think police department had their Lexipol subscription for their rules and
Lexipol for the
regulations.
city.
Lexipol for the city updates on here.
Proven.
The proven item, yep.
Proven. That was your server, right, Nina?
Yep.
And not everything is cost the amount in your appropriation, so
Everything
you
has
have
to
two
be
issues.
reappropriated again.
You have your appropriation amount, and then you have what it actually costs. Premium pay is a good
And
example.
our cybersecurity
Right.
policy.
We had appropriated 500,000 for premium pay, and I think it only worked out to like 283.
Something like that.
Because that's what it worked out to. So
I have a question for you. Now, if I'm not able to attend physically for the 16th or whenever the date comes, can I do Zoom?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Ferdinand, Brian, Scott, are we good for the 16th?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and just make this a notice that we'll meet at 6:30 normal time on the 16th. And we'll do public input on Rescue Act. We'll have the annexation petition. We'll accept it and then consider it in the future. We'll have two things from the ordinance committee which are time sensitive, because if we don't act on them, we could lose out on some Medicaid reimbursement. So we just want to make sure that we get that done.
You know, and I also want to be very clear here with all of my council members. I've had a lot of input from people calling me on something that was posted on Facebook. My job and what I was elected for was from the people of this community. People are requesting answers that I am searching. And I hope I don't offend anyone by asking questions and asking for minutes and all this other stuff, because that is our job.
Sure.
And when I can't answer it for them, I will seek it out. And that's what I was elected to do.
If I could, I think you're talking about the pool, right? The pool.
what?
The pool. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about why I'm requesting minutes of things. Tax-paying residents have asked me questions about it.
Right.
About what about this? Why isn't the funds for this? Why isn't funds for this? I cannot answer that until I get these minutes and this and that and the other. I want minutes so I can answer questions.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
think
going to give them false precincts of.
One of the important things, so the plan that was adopted back in November, there's a list of, I don't know, 40 things on there. It's a pretty exhaustive list. And it's not prioritized, there's no cost. I mean, we have no idea what some things might cost. That was the best plan at the time with the restrictions of what we could bring forward. We're here tonight because let's reprioritize. Let's talk about it so we know, okay, we can now spend these more broadly. What do we need? I think, Mayor, if we could, I know the fire department has an item, Randy has an item, they're pretty critical. Can we hear from both of them first?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Are we okay hearing from them first and then we can discuss a little bit more?
Can I make one comment before we hear from those individuals? On the document that I passed out to the council and everyone that's here, sitting up here, on the back are some ARP resources. And the most important ARP resource is the U.S. Treasury site. And when you go to that site, it is a long document, but you want to pay attention to section 602 and 603. You may want to write that down. Those two sections are the sections that specifically pertain to ARP funds, because that legislation affects a lot more than just ARP funds.
Right.
So please pay close attention to 602 and 603. And another document I'm going to get to you to try to narrow down this search process, if you want to do some of this research on your own, is I attended Mrs. Urbanic's session again today. I've been to a couple of her sessions. She does an excellent job, but she's put together what I call a cheat sheet with a table of contents, where it actually denotes pages within this document that you could go to that pertains to a lot of this information on the front. So as soon as I can get that, she said that would be available, but you can access it as well on her website, on the auditor's website, not the county's website, but it may be on the county, but specifically she referenced the auditors. So that is, I think, a very valuable tool to educate ourselves as a body. So when we get questions and we start getting public input and all of this, you know, I think it's important that we are educated and understand this process so we can make good recommendations.
Exactly.
So I
Thank you for that.
I will say with the final rule in allowing up to the 10 million of lost revenue replacement, all we have to do is amend that plan, and it change. That's all you have to do, and then you just move appropriations out of the regular budget to that fund, because everything has to be paid for out of that fund, and that's it. We're not the county. We're not getting 33 some million.
Right.
We're under the 10.
Right.
So for ease of administration, that's a good idea for us, and also it reduces the burden of reporting requirements.
So what we, hypothetically, we could, at the April meeting, we could just bring up and amend the plan to just be all revenue loss, since we're under 10 million.
Yep.
And then from there, we would still do the additional appropriations and appropriate the money.
Move it from one
as
to
we
another,
did back in
or
December.
yes, like, so if it's something that's already, you know, if we want to free up some monies, say to buy a fire truck, you know, we can free up, you know, so we could move, you know, maybe, you know, payroll or health insurance to that fund or something. That would free up money really fast.
I see what you're saying. That's an interesting idea, that we would, instead of buying a fire truck directly with Rescue Act money, we would just move salaries and benefits, which are easier to move probably, and then the fire department budget would actually buy the fire truck. Same with streets, right?
I just transfer to capital.
Right, because it's easier to make the transfer of personnel because they're cost right now. Okay.
So with this change, Nina, is that gonna change how you have to report it? Because I know it was different before.
It eases
It's
reporting
gonna be
requirements.
easier.
So I have just a question just regarding, and it's a concern that I had months ago regarding the transparency of the process. And so, as we mentioned, we're going to start getting public input on some of our ideas, you know, as these meetings progress. But is it possible to make the ARPA committee meetings public and advertised and get public input to those meetings so that they can let us know what we need? I think a theme of this meeting tonight has been that there are some things such as equipment and other things that are in need of repair. So maybe at these committee meetings, you know, we can have studies and reports and, you know, things like that, just so we can do our due diligence all the way. I know we're not the county, like you said, we're not receiving as much money as they are, but they seem to be pretty transparent in their whole process, in the fact that they even have, civilian members of their committee from the public. That sounds like a good idea, you know. And so just little things like that we can make this process a bit more transparent. You can't really go wrong with more transparency, I mean, I would say, but those are just things to consider.
So my suggestion is that that's what we're doing.
Right, and going forward,
That's
I think
what this
this is what we're just
There
going to
isn't
keep
going to
doing.
be any
Right.
committee meetings. This is it.
With the flexibility now, I
That's
think
why we're
we'll just
having a meeting
continue
on
to
the
do this at
16th.
council
That's why
meetings
we're having a
now.
meeting. So my suggestion was, after my conversations with the Office of the Public Access Counselor, who gives you a lot of very strange directions and not a lot of clarity, that it seems like let's just make this the committee.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should just do this now through the council. With the public access counselors ruling, I think, 3 weeks ago, that changed things. My whole problem with this whole process is they knew the funds were coming a year ago, and then they wait until a year later and they're like, oh yeah, you actually have to do this. I mean, Nina and the committee, we had 4 different ways of doing this, and each time we would do something, something else would come up, and they're like, oh, actually you need to do this. And I mean, the additional appropriation.
Yeah, so let's just be clear. So the ruling from the public access counselor, it's more of a policy.
Right.
It's more of a policy because what he was saying is, listen, these are one-time shot funds. more public is better. I mean, our committee, all those things are open to the public anyway, but let's just have more, everything, just have it out in the public. That's kind of his policy. That's not necessarily the law by any stretch, but not a bad policy.
So as far as like the putting forth of the ideas, it's as if we as the committee, right, are saying to the public, here are our plans, tell us what you think of them. Could we possibly say, what do you think should be our plans, and then craft them perhaps?
I think that's the 16th.
That's what the 16th, yeah, right.
I have a question as well, please. Has the ARP committee that's been appointed, have they met already?
So that's, the mayor put together this committee. It wasn't a council committee.
No, I understand
Yeah,
that.
the mayor put this, I mean, I don't think, we haven't met as a committee in months. I don't think we've met since before that plan was brought to the council.
Well, Debbie just said you've met several times, and you're saying you didn't met at all.
No, we met several times in
We
2021.
already had appropriations, so yes,
Right.
of course we've met.
Right, we met
I mean, that's.
That were
June,
voted
July,
on last
August,
year.
September, October, yeah.
And then my question is, has the committee met as a meeting and discussed business with these funds?
Well, we had meetings, absolutely, Pat.
Right.
Nina, Colin, myself, Dan,
Who's the chair of that?
well, I guess you might say I am, but I don't have a vote on the
Well,
on the
there's no
funds.
vote, no, to be clear.
But
It's
I
an
think-
advisory committee.
Yeah.
I get that.
It's a group
I
of people
understand
coming
and know
together.
this.
Right.
But don't you make a recommendation to the budget committee?
It came directly to the council.
Comes to the council.
Came right to the council.
The mayor
Well,
presented
then
the
how did
plan.
appropriation come out of the budget committee?
It didn't come out of the budget committee. This one did. The budget committee met in a budget meeting because of this change in February. The budget committee meeting was
There's
February
not
8th.
appropriation out there?
There is now for the February budget committee meeting, but we're talking about the plan from
Okay.
like
All
back in
right. Well,
November.
then, as what I
We're
do
not
have to
doing
ask
anything
is,
with that
if the committee is met, like I said, I was elected by the people. Can I have the minutes forwarded to me from those meetings?
Debbie,
Yeah, but-
you have the minutes from February, right?
We haven't approved them.
Right,
Well,
because we
they-
haven't had a second meeting.
This has been going on
So
since
then they're
May of
approved.
21.
No, Pat,
No, we
two
didn't get
different
the money
committees.
till the end of
Two
July of
different
last
things.
year.
All right, then send me
Right.
all the minutes.
There are
Two
minutes
different-
for the
ARP.
ARP committee.
Why-
the mayor
why
put
isn't
together.
there? It's a-
Because they're
it's a-
not- they
it's a
weren't-
government
They weren't
body.
meetings of a body.
They were just
meetings
discussions.
of city leaders. They weren't meetings of an official body.
No?
No.
Okay.
It was the mayor, the clerk, city attorney, and two council members, the president and the budget chair.
And was monies discussed?
Of course, we were talking about the plan that we were putting
Okay,
together,
all
the
right,
plan that was
all
brought to the council
All
and
right.
approved by this council at
I
a
get it.
public meeting.
Okay.
We read it, word for word.
And Pat, you need to understand that was very broad. That was a very broad plan, and we knew when we submitted it, because we needed to get the stipend out for the employees. So that's how that ended up getting out, to be able to pay that. But really, nothing big has come out
But
of there
once
because
again,
of plan.
transparency was never shared with the rest of the council members.
Yes, it was, Pat.
You had to
did.
vote on it.
Yeah.
You
Was
voted
there
on it.
appropriations just put out there?
I said, all right.
I
The
just
budget
asked
committee
two
met on
questions.
February 8th, as the budget committee has met many times before. Out of that budget meeting, which was a public meeting, which was noticed
Yes.
as it's required,
Okay.
we had discussed putting ARP money into an additional appropriation. I sent that to the clerk to notice, as is required by law, for tonight's meeting. The same process we did in December.
Okay,
No
you got
different.
minutes on that meeting?
Debbie just said
We
there will
haven't
be
met to
minutes
approve them.
when there's another
So when
meeting
they're
to approve them.
approved,
Okay.
yes.
So if I may, just so I could clarify one thing. So early on, the mayor did send out to all the council members requesting some suggestions, things that might be particular to their districts, and sort of any global needs. Now, the conversations that I've had with each council member that's reached out to me, and I think I've talked to actually all of you, frankly, they weren't things like what should go in the ordinance or what's most important. They were things like, what can we legally spend the money on? I mean, you guys were asking me a lot of questions, particularly before they did the safe harbor, the $10 million safe harbor. You got, most of your questions were like every other municipality out there. my gosh, this thing limits more than it allows. What can we do? So all those conversations are sort of global. The plan that was passed by this body last year was pretty broad, but not as broad as some. Frankly, there's cities in Indiana that said our plan is we're not going to break the law. We're going to spend the money so long as we don't break the law. That's pretty much their plan. If you want to talk about no forethought. So, so all these things have sort of been born, I think, of a lot of discussions. But now we're at the big show. They've opened this up. They've given us the safe harbor. They've widened the net. I've answered all the questions I can of each one of these members with respect to what's permissible, not permissible. And now you guys...
And the answer is easy now.
Yes, now it's time for you guys to... This is the committee. This is their transparency. You guys are going to throw around some ideas. You're not going to agree on everything. You're going to get heated, I'm guessing. And in the end, you're going to take comments from the public, because I've had public ask me, hey, what can these funds be spent on? You know, they call me. You're the city attorney. And I tell them, hey, listen, here's what they can and can't be spent on, a lot of different kinds of ideas. But in the end, after the public is a stakeholder, the council is a stakeholder, the mayor is a stakeholder, you guys are going to come up with some appropriations. You're going to spend the money in what you guys prioritize. You're not all going to agree, but that's good government.
And I want to make it clear, Pat, the other thing is, I know our fire department needs actually 2 engines. We've been here 2 years. Those engines needed to be replaced a long time ago. So we get this one-time drop, and we get them things that they need. But our job as a council and the mayor is to go forward in the future. There won't be another $8 million.
Exactly.
We're going to have to plan to make sure those things are covered the next time they come around.
Exactly.
We got police cars this year. We had no money. I mean, we came in with no money. Nita can sit here and tell you. There's things that we needed. We had to lease our police cars this year because we didn't have the money. And so,
which I think,
we
to
need
be
to
clear,
plan for the future. We
they're
need
happy
to
with the
stop
leases.
just living day to day is what we've been doing. And this is
just
only
long as
$8
it's all spent
million.
on what's needed for the community.
This is only
within the
$8
taxpayers'
million
needs.
though, Pat. It just does, we needed 3 times
If we have
that.
extra at the end, then wonderful.
We won't
Let's
have
help out.
extra.
Well, then it
won't
all
have
needs to go
extra.
to the taxpayers. That's where it's for.
So I know the fire department, Randy, have 2 presentations. I want to make sure we get to those because they're both important needs, things we've already talked about tonight. So let's get to those.
It's true, I went on long.
Whoever wants to go first.
All right. Well, there's been a lot of talking here, and as we discuss some things, and Councilperson Clem has brought up some concerns for the street department. I want as many plows as you can get the street department, okay? Now with that said, four would be great, and we need 4. But right now, I'm just gonna tell you our bottom need right now, and that's from Sourcewell. This is a Sourcewell quote. I passed it out. It's 1 plow. Hold on, we'll get to that. So it is at price at $245,388. Now, the way this goes is the individual, the specifications that we got on this plow is going through the, how can I say it, the assembly line, and is the only one right now that's available this year, okay? We could order the other 3 if the council so decides to do that, but that order will not be placed until 2023. And we may not see those trucks until 2024. Understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Because the market, the way these big trucks, the way they make them, they're not sitting on no lot.
No,
You have
I
to
get it.
order them, okay? Understand? Okay, now,
I do.
It's up to this council, this board, what they want to do with those ARPs, funds, and decide. But right now, I'm asking for this one individual truck, because if we don't order this now, you won't be able to place an order. This city will not be able to place an order for a plow truck until 2023, okay?
That's gotta go before the Board of Works, doesn't it gotta go for bidding?
I think if we're gonna use Rescue Act money, we would have to appropriate it at that April meeting, so that's why
Okay.
this is time sensitive.
Different, that's
Right,
why I was
right.
asking.
Now, the actual purchase process, that goes to the Board of Works.
Right.
But because these funds
Okay.
are ARP funds,
Good
we
deal.
need to approve them.
Good deal.
So this is a Sourcewell quote already approved by the government.
Right.
This quote is already approved. You don't got to go out to bid or anything. It's already been pre-approved, and all it does is wait and looks for a yes.
That's why I
all
just
it
wanna
is.
make sure we're
Okay?
straight on that.
So that's just this plow. Now, if you want to order 3 more, that's not going to be able to, now you can make that decision later on down the road, but that decision, you could say yes to those other 3, but that will not be placed until 2023. Okay, so just want to make sure. Now, the other 2 pieces of equipment that we've been looking at, we've been looking for a total patcher. Darren has been in contact with Councilperson Podgorski about that. That's about $85,000.
What is that?
That's called a total patcher.
We put that in the budget.
Did we put that in the budget?
That should be in the budget already.
You say cold?
It's called a total patcher.
Thank you.
It's a more permanent fix with our pothole situation. Instead of just throwing patch in there, it's got a special resin. It uses, I think it's like 73. It's really fine rock, and it's a more permanent fix in our road repairs.
Nice.
Randy,
So-
I believe Nina just said this, and as best as I can recall, that's the case. It's in the wheel tax budget.
It's in the wheel tax,
Yep.
okay, all right. And then the other piece of equipment that I've gotten 3 quotes on, I've gotten 3 quotes. It's called an Advent 524 mini loader. I've sent this out to the mayor. Dan Whitten has reviewed those. I've been working with AJ, but we don't know if we have those available funds. This is a special piece of equipment. It's a mini loader. It's made out of Finland, but they do have their headquarters up in Chicago. I think it's Schaumburg, and they've been an established company for about 12 years in the United States. Very competitive in the market. This piece of equipment can be used all year round. It doesn't come with 200 attachments, but it can be, you could purchase up to 200 different attachments. A loader, snow blower, blades, all kinds of stuff with this. It's a very versatile tool, very small. I could shortly email the entire council.
I was just
that.
gonna ask that, if you
Yeah,
would, please.
so I will email that to the entire, but those are my 3 pieces of equipment. The total patcher is in the wheel tax, but 2 pieces of equipment, that'd be great.
How much
Let me
is
ask-
the 524?
The 528 mini loader is $62,446.
You'll forward all this, Nick?
Yes, I will forward that to you.
Then what about leaf vacs?
Leaf vacs, right now we have 5 leaf vacs. It would be great to have an additional 2.
Now's the time.
And I'm asking for that then. Those are about 83,000 apiece, so.
And do you have
Randy,
the
can you
employees
send
to
that
run?
to all of us?
Yes, I
just so
will.
we all receive it?
I will.
Yeah, we need leaf vacs bad every time I get a lot of complaints from the taxpayers. And a lot of times, and then it's out of our control. They're in disarray, they're in repair. So we really are operating on 3 solidly. Am I correct? And usually 1 or 2 are down?
Usually.
How many we have, 5? you said?
We got 5,
Yeah.
and we usually we got enough manpower to operate 4.
4. So a 5th one's good, we just don't have the
A
manpower.
5th, yes. When 1 goes down, we use that 5th, and then we fix the 1 and we
So you have a
rotate.
rotating
We have a
4.
backup, yes.
Okay, so 2 more would be good then?
Yes, 2 more would be good, because we could get rid of the 2 older ones that we have issues.
Or add more people onto the
That
roster?
That would be a
Our city's growing.
budget. That would be a budget, if we wanted to add more employees, so that
Well,
would be more, yeah.
City's growing, man, you can't
Yes.
run.
So one thing I'm
I
gonna
know
just
that
caution
Terry
with
wants
Rescue
that
Act
bucket
money,
truck, too.
just my
The
opinion on
bucket
this.
truck?
The bucket truck.
The bucket truck, yeah, that
Terry
would,
said
I'd
to
have
be
to get some
sure
quotes
you
out,
put
so.
that in there.
Yeah, I know Terry and I have discussed that, so, yes.
So on the Rescue Act money, just something I think we should be cognizant of with adding employees and then paying for it with Rescue Act money. How do we pay for them when Rescue Act money's gone?
No, I understand that.
And I think the city is pretty much tapped out on creating new
But we're
revenue.
growing new development, we got new taxpayers every year.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
so,
But, and I think this will be a discussion with this annexation, to be honest, about how do we plan, I mean, we're talking, what, 1,300 new homes in the next 5 years? The city's getting tapped out on ways to create revenue. I mean, property taxes only go up so much with
oh
assessed
no, I'm not
values.
asking, I won't support a tax raise.
So I think, well, we couldn't anyway. We
No.
don't have the ability to do it. I think we just need to be careful when it comes to employees.
I get it.
Because we don't want to put ourselves or future mayor and future city council in a position where they can't afford to have these employees because we paid for them with Rescue Act money. It's only 8 million and it's only here through 2024, and if we don't spend it, we give it back. So once we hire staff, we just have to have a plan to be able to pay for them in the future.
Well, a lot of times we can, and I know a lot of them do, a lot of department heads do, they chase a lot of grants, which frees up other monies.
Right.
I mean, now we gotta chase all these things. We gotta get a rotating grant program system moving and moving and moving, chasing,
And I think our
all the
departments,
time.
I think
A
they
lot
do
of
a
times
good job
these
at it.
grants are not
Yeah.
being chased.
They're all trying to get as many grants as they can, but
Well,
again, you have to remember, you
Haven't
also
been
have to
through
be
the budget
approved for
process
those
last year.
grants.
We've
Some
squeezed every
grants,
drop
I
out of
recall
it.
with the fire department, they didn't get it.
Yeah,
I
get
think
it. I
sanitation,
understand. I get it.
they didn't get it, so.
I understand.
Yeah, and just a comment about the street department in general, NVH fund. The state has just eviscerated the NVH fund with the restrictions that they placed on it. Because now they say, okay, here's all your money that you get, split it in half. Half goes to MVH, half goes to restricted. Here's what you can use it on for restricted. That, like, just, what is it? Construction, reconstruction of roads. That's it. And we've gotten creative on what construction and reconstruction means to
With
begin
wheel
with.
tax, not with restricted.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. Right. With wheel tax. So I gotta give Randy credit. I mean, his budget has been basically cut in half, and funding that department is a challenge to say the least, because we only have so much revenue, and we can't get any more. So we need the state to change that formula, at least to what AIM is pushing for, which I think is 70-30. As opposed to 50-50. But until the state changes it, we're stuck with this 50-50 split, and it's absolutely crushing the street department.
What about Chuck Mosley? We talked to our state rep about.
It's not the Democrats. I mean, it's been.
I didn't say parties. I'm just
saying there's only so many of them. Right?
He's our voice down at the House.
I've had conversations with Chuck. I had conversations with Karen about this when she was in the Senate. AIM has been pushing for this, and they weren't able to get it done this time. There's just no interest downstate, and I think it's one representative just south of us that pushed this.
We were able to stop them
Brian and
from
I went to
taking
the
more
town
money.
hall on Saturday, and we did, and Scott was there too. I mean, we are there when we can speak up for Portage,
Good.
but they have to part with that money.
Yes, they do.
Okay, for the sake of moving on, because I
Thank you,
know
Randy.
there's several other. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Randy.
Well, you always go first.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I believe Chief Wilkening attached this to his monthly report, but
Correct.
just so you
Thank
can
you.
follow along as we go.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
First off, thanks for taking the time tonight to listen to department heads for our needs and everything like that. Obviously, fire department has a lot of needs, including manpower and stuff like that, but we've already discussed manpower is probably not a good idea with these funds. So the biggest critical need that we have as a fire department that could be addressed with these funds is our fire apparatus situation. It's a critical, and it's not just like the mayor said, it's not just one engine. We have a 25-year-old tower on top of that. So just real quick, going through our apparatus, just on the fire side, ladder 1 is our primary unit out of station 1. It's 4 years old and already has approximately 23,000 miles on it. Engine 2 is our primary unit out of station 2. It's 11 years old and approximately 93,000 miles on it already. Engine 3, which is the unit that we're talking about needing replaced right now, 15 years old and 112,000 miles on it. Ladder 2 is our reserve engine. It runs out of station 1 as a reserve. It's the first unit that we staff when we have a callback on a large scale incident. It's also the first unit we put in service if one of our other apparatus goes down. And then Tower 3 out of Station 3, it's 25 years old, approximately 70,000 miles. That's our special needs unit if we have a large industrial fire or we have some sort of rescue where we feel we need that 100-foot platform. The crew from Engine 3 will jump off Engine 3 and go up to Tower 3 to cover that call. So it's not something that we use on every call or on a day-to-day basis, but when we need it, we absolutely need it. So it's a piece of apparatus that we definitely need.
Especially when you got one of them.
Yes, yes.
Let me ask you this, sir.
Yes.
How much from probably your smallest engine to the largest engine are we compared in weight? Do you know, possibly?
The tower is about 72,000 pounds, and the ladder trucks are about 37,000, and the engines are about 28,000.
1,000 gallons of water in them?
On the engines.
On the engine?
Everything else.
And how much was that again? I'm sorry.
About 28,000.
28,000. Thank you.
So can you talk about, I know I talked with Chief Wilkening about this,
Yes.
maybe he's best to answer it. The replacement plan going forward, because I know we briefly got into it, Chief, and how you all are planning to address that.
So as of right now, obviously, if we were able to replace Engine 3 right now, that's just a step in the right direction. It's not a fix. From there, a couple things come to mind. We've talked about, I know there's been talk about possibly putting an ACUME fund together where we can seed that and then give so much to that each year. We would then be able to fund our own apparatus and our own equipment and move on from there. And a huge thing for that would be if we could get that public safety tax going. So my dream is to get an ACUME fund going where we can manage our own funds for that equipment. Chief Kotichek has done a great job doing that with our EMS equipment, where we're buying ambulances and equipment out of that. I'd like to see the same thing on the fire side. And like I said, if we could then get that public safety tax going, we could be pretty self-sufficient and start rotating our engines like we need to.
So just for clarity on the public safety tax, we don't pass that.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, right.
That's something we're gonna have to go to the county for, and whenever we're ready to go, I'm right behind you.
Okay.
What's the cost of engine 3 approximate?
Right now, so when we had Engine 2 up at the manufacturer to get some work done, we asked them to give us a price of the exact replacement for that, and right now, just the apparatus, not including the equipment, is about $800,000.
Wow.
So to totally equip that and replace it properly, what would be?
You're
the
talking
Mm-hmm.
$950,000 to $1 million to replace all the equipment because the extrication equipment is not cheap. All the saws and everything like that definitely aren't cheap. And then on our EMS side, our LifePak 15s, I think alone are $35,000 to $40,000. So.
Yeah, to me, it doesn't make sense if we're gonna appropriate money for that type of apparatus. We wanna do it right.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing a request for $1 million.
Yes. So just real quick over some things. Our recent repairs over the last 2 to 3 years. Engine 2 alone, which currently Engine 2 is sitting up at Great Lakes Peterbilt, getting a complete overhaul of its motor, which is probably going to be about $25,000 and probably at least a month of downtime. And that's our second newest apparatus. With that, over the last 18 months, it's been down for repairs for about 4 months, and we've spent about $65,000 in repairs just on that one apparatus. Engine 3, if you look at that, there's not a whole lot of major repairs on that, but that engine has been down a lot. As you can see, over the last 2 years, it's been down at least 6 months because of little repairs. Luckily, with our mechanic being able to fix some of that,
The biggest problem with that, and one of the main reasons we have to replace engine 3, is parts are hard to come by, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Ladder 2, which is our reserve, over the last 15 months, we spent $45,000 in repairs, and it's been down for 5 months. And then Tower 3, we went back about 2.5 years because back at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, we had to put $60,000 into it, and it was down for 5 months for some major repairs. So we've done over the last 2.5 years, it's been down for 9 months total, and $81,000 in repairs. So obviously, these are putting a strain on our budget.
So for engine 3, hypothetically gets replaced, what's the time frame on that? It's quite
So from the
long.
time we signed the papers, about 2-year turnaround time.
Okay.
But just a reference on that, Chief Kodachek talked with the company that we do our ambulance manufacturers through, and they're talking 600 days right now for an ambulance alone. And an ambulance is a lot easier build than a fire engine.
So what happens with engine 3 once it's replaced?
So
in 2 years, I guess.
So
Maybe not much.
it will go into reserve status because we have to have reserve apparatus. So as long as it is still in safe, workable condition, it'll go into reserve status just like ladder 2 is right now. And then if we have to move that up, because by then ladder 2 will be 23 years old and definitely ready to be gone. So engine 3 would go into reserve status at that point. So national standards say 15 years. After 15 years, a apparatus should be taken from front line. Engine 3 right now is at that 15-year mark. Like I said, 2 years to build, and that's if we start now. Engine 3 will be at least 17 years old by the time we're able to put it in reserve. And at that time, when we get that new engine, engine 2 will be at 13 years, and then we should be going through the process of speccing to get that one replaced. And as you guys are aware, Tower 3, though, we do know it's 25 years old and definitely in need. We're attempting to get that replaced through grants. The AFG grant will not necessarily give us an engine. We have a chance, though it may be small, at a special apparatus like a tower through that grant. So we're working on that. Obviously, we're in the service delivery business. In order to do our job, we have to make it on scene. We need to do this in safe apparatus. This is for the safety of not only our firefighters, but the citizens. We don't want unsafe apparatus going lights and sirens down our roadways and possibly causing any injury to our citizens. Most of the calls we go to are lights and sirens, and many times that is done in inclement weather. So the safety of our apparatus is very important. As you guys are aware, over the last couple of years, we've had to borrow apparatus from neighboring jurisdictions, and although that's a great benefit to be able to have, we're then putting our personnel in apparatus that they're not trained to operate. We train on our own equipment, we know our own equipment, and now we're putting them in apparatus that they don't necessarily know. And on top of that, we don't necessarily know what type of maintenance procedures the department that we're borrowing that from is doing on their apparatus. So definitely, like I said, it's nice that we could borrow it, but it's definitely not an ideal situation when we're putting our people in those vehicles. Even though we maintain and keep our vehicles clean, obviously with the road salt and the weather in northwest Indiana, it's rough on our apparatus. Electricals, shocks, springs, brakes and all that, very rough on it. So no matter what we do at this age and these mileage, it's rough on them. And then our emergency response, our vehicles are severe service vehicles. They're not simply over-the-road vehicles like semis. We run them hard. We start them at a cold start, and then we go on an emergency run. Obviously, it's not ideal, but we don't have a choice. We can't allow them to warm up and then go on the emergency. These vehicles aren't built to do that, so that makes it extra hard on our vehicles, being that severe service vehicle that they are. Like I said, $800,000 approximately just for the vehicle itself. 2 years ago, that was at $600,000. So prices are going up quickly. As Randy referenced, chassis are getting harder and harder to come by, so getting on top of this as quickly as possible is definitely a benefit in both cost and the ability to get it done in that 2-year mark. We're not asking for a Cadillac fire truck. All we're asking for is a fire truck that's going to be able to let us do our job. You all know we're fire and EMS, so we need department space. We need what we need to get our job done. And we're also not going out to one of the big manufacturers. I mean, we can go out and spend an extra $200,000, $300,000 just to put a different name on the vehicle, but it's not worth it. We are going to talk to our manufacturers they put out a good quality product, and when we have troubles, they give us great service. So we definitely have good manufacturers out there without being the big name. The biggest thing, like I said, with Engine 3, it was manufactured by American LaFrance. That company no longer exists, so parts are getting harder and harder to come by. Some parts are even impossible to find. We've had to go out to junkyards to find parts. We've had to have parts adapted and fabricated in order to get our engine back up and running. Luckily, Engineer Litzkow has those contacts, and he's been able to track stuff down. But with that being said, in 3 years he retires, so we're losing him. If you guys don't know, he's a certified mechanic for emergency vehicles. He does a lot of our in-house mechanical work, which is a huge savings for us. His overtime rate's at 35, shop rate's at 150. That's something that we're losing, and that's going to increase our repair bills. So if we don't get our apparatus under check, we're going to be in trouble. He also does it quicker than most of the repair shops, gets us in quicker. So decreased downtime, and like I said, with his retirement, it's going to increase our downtime, increase our repair costs. And like I said, this engine is not a want, it's a dire need. So,
2 questions for you.
Yes.
One, can we have 3 years before he retires? Can we
Yes.
have someone else become a certified mechanic for this?
We do have 4 people that have not volunteered, but they want to be part of a mechanical team. They've already started taking some classes, and that is something they've been working with Engineer Litzkow to work on that, but obviously his years of experience is not going to be easily replaced even in 3 years. So definitely something we're working towards, but it won't be an easy task. And I'll still have his phone number when we do, so we'll be all right.
You can hire him. Hire him back.
Yeah.
It's consultant.
We can hire him at the street department, and then he can be our mechanic. I don't know that he would be okay with that. On the parts, so would we be able to just, we know what parts we need in the future, track them down now, have them in place, ready to go in case we need them?
You're talking about the American France, correct?
Right.
So basically, some of the older vehicles, like even Ladder 1, which is 20 years old now, 21 years old. I'm sorry, it's Ladder 2 now. Technology has exceeded what the old stuff was on.
Yep.
So we had retrofit something to understand. Common stuff that breaks on the American France that I can find still. I've been buying an extra door handle key. They're like $50.
Right.
We don't have a door handle key, so those I have a couple spares of stuff that's unique to that vehicle. I think without getting crazy, just putting thousands of dollars out there.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
You're all in this PT Cruiser right now.
Any other questions
I
for me?
do.
Yes.
Is it an option to put like oil heaters and coolant heaters in there to keep that liquid warm? Goes right into operation?
Well,
like that?
they stay in heated bays, so it's not necessarily.
That's true, yeah. Okay.
It's not. We're not. When it is outside, we leave them idle because our fire pumps and everything will freeze out.
Okay.
So that cold start is just because it's going from nothing to start
Sure.
going. Yeah.
I follow you now. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Kevin, I have a question for you. When you, say you got a new truck,
Yes.
a new engine, do we have to put like a down payment to get them started, or how does that payment process? Is there some kind of a payment process?
Typically, you just have to sign the contract and then you pay it in full when it's all completed.
So let's say hypothetically,
Yes.
because we know how things go. We have is there any chance that this doesn't happen before the end of 2024?
26.
Oh, is it
We have to be at-
26?
we
I
have to
thought
be
we
at-
had to spend the money.
We have to get
before.
we have to encumber the dollars by 2024.
Right.
You
Okay.
have to show
Spend
the
by
As long as there's a contract
Okay,
signed,
just
I
wanted to
think
make
we should be
sure.
all right
Okay.
also.
Never mind then.
Okay.
You have to have.
I hope this does not take 4 years.
Yeah.
So do I.
And you said you've had that pretty much spec'd out, or do you have to go through that whole process?
We'll still have to go through a spec committee. That's the way we work. So there is a little bit of time before we could say, let's go. So there's still going to be a spec committee, but what we did was ask the manufacturer, if you were to duplicate this truck, what would it be?
So
that's
I mean,
kinda how we
So
got
how
it
much
figured.
time is that spec time?
Should beat me to it.
I'm just trying to look at times.
So, when it was up there, I'm involved with that too, as far as, manufacturer, I spoke with them. They said from the time that there's any change of manifest, as far as if let's say we have a spec committee and then all of a sudden, last minute, we want to do an upgrade or change something, it's, they said it was like 18 months approximately from the time they get the change order and you signed it, and everything is, as far as council guarantees the money, basically. It's like 18 months from that day on.
So
So
is there
then that
anything?
locks the price in, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, well, once we sign the contract, yeah, that's,
Okay, so
unless for some reason throughout the process, there's a change order, because
that's
of something.
normal, that, yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything stopping you from starting that process now? Because obviously we can't do this tonight.
Correct. No, I can absolutely send out an email tomorrow getting my spec committee together.
I think that's a wise decision to help speed
I
this
would
up
agree
a
with
little bit.
that.
I agree.
'cause Move on it.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
And I think that same message
two-
could probably go to Randy too. That
I like how you did
just
it.
a guidance that if there's anything you can do to speed this up in the next month.
I need to though. I mean, it is what it is.
Well, he said he was gonna try to get it going.
Right, but if there's anything else that you need to get going, I don't see why you couldn't start that process, assuming
Get 'em all.
we get there.
If you guys do have any other questions or need to get hold of me, I did put my business card on the back of that
I
packet.
saw that, thank you.
My cell phone number's on the back of that also, so if you guys ever have any questions.
We know where.
Oh, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
You had mentioned that you may be filing for a grant, or you have filed for a grant, and we haven't heard back from, and that's for a purchase of another one, which would be a second one, right?
That is looking to replace the tower, which
the
is,
tower.
yeah,
The
which
main-
is our
the one to
25
the main,
year,
okay.
yeah.
Now,
Definitely
what happens
something,
if that grant don't come through?
we're gonna have to figure that out, because at 25 years old, that needs replacing,
That's
like
why
I
I'm
said.
bringing that up now.
It's definitely a piece of apparatus that we absolutely need in our city, especially as we grow, like I said, specialized rescues, our industry up north, it's definitely something that we need, but we've always kind of put that aside to make sure that our frontline apparatus is where we need it to be, because that's what our men and women are in every day.
So in terms of Tower 3, how often are we using that up north for in industry?
It
I guess
probably
my question
goes,
is,
yeah.
how often are we using it up north for industry versus everyday usage?
Its main calls are the industry up north. I mean, if we go to big box stores like Meijer and Walmart, it'll roll on that too. Anything we feel that elevated platform will give us an advantage, it goes.
For a broad roof span?
Yeah, that not only that, it's safer to be able to, if we do have to cut a hole in the roof, to have our guys in the basket
Sure.
rather than up on the roof.
And this includes the ports of Indiana, right?
It does. It does.
So back to my question, when do we think you will hear back on that grant? I mean, I know we got time for expenditures on this, but.
Yeah, hopefully they'll start awarding in the next couple months.
Wonderful. Okay.
The AFG grant, it's a hurry up and wait thing, and then all of a sudden they'll start dumping money out, so hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully we'll have some.
And how much was that vehicle?
The vehicle itself,
Yes.
so AFG allows us to max out at $1 million requested. To actually replace the tower that we have sitting there, you're probably talking closer to $1.7, $1.8 million. But my whole premise behind the grant was we need a tower, even if it's not exactly what we have. So if they're only allowing us the $1 million to replace it, we would do everything we can within our budget and whatever we can get to get a tower to do what we need it to do.
I request that we think about this with this budget, or with this ARP funds, and follow that grant very closely, and we may have to cover some costs there on that, or all of it. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's a serious business.
When did you submit that, Kelly? It's been a while back.
Yeah,
Too long, couple
I'm
months?
trying to remember. I think it was supposed to close
maybe in November and December, and they
Yeah, we were
extended
still
it
in
another,
City Hall.
so maybe
Yeah.
it was beginning of January
Yeah.
that it actually got
Yeah, 'cause
submitted.
they were still in City Hall.
Yeah,
So it hasn't been too long.
yeah.
Keep me informed on that, would you please?
What's that?
Keep me informed on that,
Oh, I
grant,
will.
would you please?
Absolutely. Anything else?
No?
Like I
Thank
said, you have my card if you need to get a hold of me.
I'll
Good
call you.
presentation,
Thank you.
Kevin, thank you.
Thank you,
And
guys.
I think Chief Candiano had a few items too. While he's here.
Before you start though, Chief, I have a question for Randy. Are those trucks, snow plows, are they made here in the state of Indiana?
They're Western Stars, so I have to look at the manufacturer.
Yeah, I think, that's where our last ones were purchased, and I think they're southern Indiana. Yeah, so it's our home stick builder for,
They're Western Star chassis, and the equipment, the snowplow equipment is done right there in Maryville.
in Maryville, sure. Sure. Thank you.
Hurry up, chief. Somebody will think of something.
We're almost broke.
I think we need an intermission.
Yeah.
Getting worn out back there. Okay, so first of all, I don't have a formal presentation because I wasn't clear that we were going down this way. I
Call an audible, Chief.
Yeah, so I'm going on the fly here. I do know that I need 3 times the amount of money that you're going to give the fire department. Is that good, or you got questions? All right. So a couple of our big needs that I know we aren't generally able to ever discuss. First is body cams. I can tell you that I believe we are the only department in our county that does not have them right now. We are the largest department. We are the busiest department, and it's becoming an issue. I can tell you, I don't know if you guys are aware, there was an incident in Valpo, it was a year or so ago, where somebody made an allegation against an officer, very serious allegations, to the point where it hit social media. This officer started getting death threats to his family and things. The body camera proved that this guy was totally lying about the incident. It used to be that we would write our reports and it was that, but unfortunately the world we live in now, I think generally people don't believe us. Their first instinct is to not believe the police, which is a sad state of the world, but that's where we find ourselves.
Very true.
So this is an option that maybe with this money where we could actually get something that we haven't been able to have that opportunity for. I just in the very preliminary steps of reaching out to some different companies and finding prices and things. I got an email like as we're sitting back here with some rough numbers. I can send that to you, some of that to you. Again, I don't have a full presentation, but that's probably one of our bigger needs. Training and equipment, some money in there is an issue. I know some of the money that's going into that comes from continuing ed, some of that is not flowing in as much as used to be. We do not have an equipment budget or equipment fund. I spoke to the assistant chief prior to coming up here. He said it's been about 8 years since we had money in that fund. So we generally are taking that money out of continuing ed to pay for that. So we have, I believe, 12 officers that are on the drop that are going to be leaving in the next 2 years. It costs us approximately $4,000 or so, $4,000 to $5,000 to outfit those officers. So we've got major expenditures coming in the next couple of years. So we're kind of conflicted with, spending education money out of that continuing ed and having money reserved for all the equipment. So that's a big need, one way or the other. I think he could probably speak a little better on the way the funds work there, but with 2 things coming out of one pot, I think it's going to be a problem for us. So, and then I guess the third thing that I would talk about is the cars. Obviously, very pleased with the way everything ended up working out. It was a process.
And I gotta give you and your admin team credit. You found a better solution, and it was cheaper, and it got us cars right away, and got them on the street. So thank you for that.
I think I gave props to Captain Hughes at one of the meetings, but I think I cut out because it was virtual. So I'll give him his props here. He put a lot of work into that and made some good connections. So
And it sounds like the relationship is going to be.
The relationship seems good. I think it's going to be great. I mean, we'll never know until it actually starts rolling. But as of right now, we're pretty happy. We actually just got some information back that some of the parts are going to come in sooner than we thought. So we may see these cars a little sooner. So my concern.
How many? It was 15. 15.
15. Yeah. So my concern would be, I don't know what next year looks like. I don't, we've talked about how this is a continuous need. We put miles on, just like, the fire department, their stuff gets old, they need things. I think they get a little bit more of, obviously, time out of it. If you're talking 25 years or whatever. We're getting 4 or 5 years out of a squad car, and then it becomes a money pit. Not to mention the appearance of some of these cars as they're getting out there. So I don't know if there's a plan for next year. We did add 2 additional officers this year because of the SRO positions that the school funded. So that is 2 additional officers that we got that we had to have cars for. Unfortunately, we had 3 cars that were totaled this year. We didn't really get any money back from that. So this wasn't something that I was going to bring up, but it probably, if there's some additional funds or we're trying to make plans for the future, probably need to have some kind of a thought on what we would be doing next year. So, and we're in the same boat, I think, with cars as far as the time. The longer you wait, I think everybody's running into I'm sure the auto industry. It's hard to get things right now. So. I just wanted to bring that up. That's another thought. So, I could get you about 20 more things if you want to give me some time. I could get you.
We need to hear it, man.
But those would probably be the 3 things that come to my mind right now, and I can type something up and send it to y'all.
If you would.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you add the ADA for each vehicle?
Yep. We'll work on that. Yep.
And training for each officer.
Yep. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So that was just on the fly there, so hopefully that,
I get it.
Hopefully that was decent. All right.
We got time, so if you'd make up
Chief,
some.
I've got one for you.
Sure.
I know that the bulletproof vests are replaced every 5 years. Do grants cover all of that, or do we have to cover part of that?
The grants cover 50% of the cost.
50% of it. And where are we at with those replacements? Is that coming up? Are they staggered? They're staggered.
Yeah, it depends on, because they're hired at different states or different times, and so that stuff comes up. So, Scott could probably speak more of it, but one year we could have a couple, and then next year we could get hit. So it's kind of hard, it's kind of hard to have a specific number budgeted each year because obviously it changes. And then we have, with new officers, so that goes into the whole. You're hiring 12 new people, which we're going to need to do. You're talking pretty much all the gear, especially if they're retirees. They get to take a lot of that with them, or the stuff is just, it's not reusable.
Right.
Yeah, so it kind of all, goes into that. As we've said, we're a growing city, and the needs just keep coming. So.
So do you have a line item in your budget for that? Like the fire department has $30,000 for your turnout gear every year. That's automatically in their budget.
No, I believe
so when they need to get it, it's there.
I believe we're paying for it out of continuing ed.
So you need to get a line item in there that's kind of like a.
Used to be one in there.
Take whatever you want to give me. But yeah, I think that's where I think we're kind of taking money from 2 different spots out of one, with the education, which obviously we're mandated to have a certain amount of education every year, and it's the right thing to do is educate your officers as things change and keep them up to date.
Absolutely.
And we're pulling out of one pot for two different things.
That's not good. I'd like to give you a call later this week and
absolutely
discuss a few more things.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you, Chief.
Anything else? All right, thank y'all.
Thank you.
I just wanted to mention, because the ARP monies is just a once-in-a-lifetime thing, they're going to have their fleet replacement needs forever.
Right.
So it might be a good idea to consider issuing an equipment bond for 5 years for $1 million, $1.5 million, and renew it every 5 years.
Yeah.
So then it could be planned replacement.
And we're paying it as a annual debt payment and not as a
not as an equipment lease.
Right.
How is our rate right now for bonding power?
We have plenty of bonding power because we only have the park bond on the city side of property taxes.
Right.
So we have capacity.
It would just be something that we'd have to budget for. We do it, we know what the cost is going to be, and we have to budget for it and add it into the budget.
Well, when you borrow, it's going to squeeze your other funds a little bit, but you're squeezing them anyway if you're doing like a health equipment lease purchase or this lease purchase. So then you can allocate any monies that's what the impact would be for the funds with that borrow issuance and supplement it with lit or CCD.
Right.
There's ways, and then, but getting on that program.
Well, with the CCD rate resetting, there's money that we weren't planning for. Let's maybe
And
plan that.
I guess I would, as far as once we do the revenue replacement option, just keep in mind Lori's not here, her budget was
Right,
slashed.
her budget was
Right,
slashed
I was
too.
just gonna say that. We have two areas, MVH obviously that's in the
Unfunded.
wrong side, and the park department, based on the 1782 that has been hit, that we're going to have to help them as well. So some of this money may also have to shore them up.
So, Nina, for the park budget, was it based on, it was based on revenue in 20 and 21, right?
What do you mean?
Like the 1782 cuts, like they based it on revenue that
'Cause it was a-
included.
it was a bigger hit this year
big
than it
hit
was
we
the
expected.
before.
So was it based on 2020 revenue, which
Well,
would have
we
been?
grew our general fund.
Right.
So that's gonna get funded first.
Right, right.
And so the park's the smallest fund,
that's where
it
they
gets the
cut.
least levy,
So
so
that's
that just
where they
keeps
took
getting hit.
Right.
Debbie, do you remember how many squad cars we purchased in 2020?
12.
Up to 12? So the first 2 years here, we bought 27 squad cars. That's how far behind the 8 ball we were.
Well, yeah,
When
coming
we
in.
came in.
When we came in, right.
And the year before, I think we got only 6, didn't we?
Yeah, in 2020, we purchased 12 police vehicles.
Mhm.
Yeah.
2021, we didn't get any.
We didn't
Right.
get any.
Right.
This year,
We're
it
getting
was
them now.
15, so technically 10 for last year and only 5 for this year, which would be 5 short still.
Right.
For this,
Mm-hmm.
for this year.
And then either the year before or before that, there was 6, is that what you
6.
said?
Yep, I think that was
Before we
2019.
took seat, it was even less.
Remember, that was kind of a crazy time, and it was in between mayors, and they were, yeah, we had some paperwork issues with
Just
that.
to-
I think it was only 6.
To keep the fleet up to date, how many per year?
We need to rotate at least 10 cars out per year.
10
Every
cars
year.
per year.
Keep fresh and keep
And I think that's something that the lease program that they went into
Right.
will help manage the replacement, because now these vehicles will get replaced in 5 years, right? We know what the cost is.
That group.
Right. So this group that we just got will be replaced in 5 years with new vehicles. They're leases. Now that's going to be a cost, continual cost. We're always going to have that cost, but we're not scrounging to find, oh, we need $500,000 that we don't have in cash right now, as opposed to $100,000 a year or $150,000 in lease payments.
But are we 5 behind in arrears of that rotation, or still 5?
We're still 5 behind.
Yeah, you're still
Right. We're still
So
5
we'll
behind.
need 5
Yep.
more purchases of vehicles?
But, like Nina just said, if we look at this bond,
Mm-hmm.
we can start to get ahead of the 8 ball
Yeah,
again. I mean, obviously, prior
You just
to
continue to renew.
this
Right.
group, something fell off.
Yeah.
All the way around, not just with squad cars, I would say with the street department.
Oh,
I'd say with the-
everyone did, absolutely.
Something
But I mean, now would be the time, the
swirled
chance
in
to
the-
catch
with the
up to
tiny
those
ball.
5,
So,
right?
again, we only have so much money.
Well, I mean, in 2020, we had to do a general obligation bond to
Yeah.
pay the bills
fix.
that were left over, and that was 4.3 million.
Well, we
So
were
we're
only
still
able to
5 short.
recoup 1.66 into the general fund.
Right.
98 or so into the park fund, and 400 and some thousand into MVH.
Yep.
To refund capital purchases from 2017 to
Right.
through 28.
So, I mean, we're starting way behind to get to this point, so.
So I know that there were some people that came and expected to speak a little. Are you going to allow them? I mean, this is the council's,
I would say during
Okay.
public comment. Anybody?
Pardon?
During public comment.
yeah.
And then we'll have the public meeting that's specifically for the public to provide comments on air. But we have public comment tonight. I would say anybody else that wanted to speak as normal.
Before we go into all that, I'd still like to emphasize on the infrastructure, how bad the city is with, I mean, we just had a big old cave in. Can you imagine one of our fire engines or ambulance was going to a call and
So one thing, Pat, I'm just on this, I know, and Nina, I know you are more familiar with this, we cannot use this for matching funds, right?
No, not federal.
Right. Not federal, but can we use it for community crossings?
Well, there's federal dollars mixed in with community crossings from the state.
Okay, yeah, so, like,
And we are applying for community crossings
Right.
already this year. And then the project for the Chrisman Road, that's $3.5 million. We're starting that sometime this month.
so I think what I'm trying to say is, we can't use these funds for those matching grants.
Oh,
Like
no.
our community crossing
We just
matching
have to pay
grants.
for
and-
separately for separate projects.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So I think we want to think through, would that be a good use of these funds?
I get it.
Can we use them on something else because
Sure, no, I get
we're
it.
not matching them?
Yeah.
I mean, we have a
We do
plan
have
for.
more money because of the MVH restricted. It's about $750,000 a year. That's
Right.
basically just to pay roads. So
Right.
there's that plus the wheel tax.
Plus the real tax, and then
Yeah.
we have the match from community crossings and
The state took
federal
out MVH
grants,
to
so.
put directly
There's
towards-
also-
I mean, we haven't even heard from our head department of our utilities, our wastewater treatment plant.
Right.
We haven't
Well,
even
we
heard
know,
to touch
I-
that subject.
I mean, we'll certainly hear from.
We have
from
to give
Tracy.
them $1 million, Pat, because.
Oh, I think more than that, if there's left,
Well, we have.
minimum.
I mean, the clarifiers are 1.95 million, so we know that we can only pay for half of those 6 clarifiers, but we do have a SWIFT grant in to try to pay for the other half.
Yep.
So we are reaching out to other entities.
Sure, good.
Because there's infrastructure money out there. So we got turned down on our last SWIFT grant, and that's another conversation that.
That's why I'm kind of leading to, we're
Well, we got
losing
turned down
options,
for a
and then
reason.
we're gonna sit empty-handed
We got
with nothing fixed.
turned down for a reason, but that's
I
a.
get it, but I just want to sit empty-handed when we could have fixed something.
We already have the consultants in there getting the clarifiers, because we don't have a choice. Those clarifiers have to be replaced. They're 52 years old, and we have not done anything with them.
No?
So one went down, it's cripping along, but I talked to Tracy about it yesterday, and she said, because we haven't had any bad rains, it's holding its own, but it's not gonna last. The soonest we can get those in, those fall, if we can get the parts. That's our biggest problem is, like Randy with the equipment, we can't get it.
Well, that's what I say, we gotta modernize, we gotta invest.
Okay, we have introduction of ordinances, but there are none. We don't have any petitions or remonstrances, so if there is anybody in the audience who would like to come forward and speak to the council, this is the time you can do that. Just please state your name and where you live, and come up to the podium and present.
It's your turn, Doug.
Hi, Doug.
My name's Doug Gibson. I live at 2841 Monier Street, over there by the VFW. Now, I've listened tonight to everybody talking, and I had my eyes open a little bit that it takes a little bit of money to run the city. Okay, so I appreciate all your good work that you're trying to put forth here. And the monies that you're in charge of, taxpayer money that we put forth to help, and the government and the state that helps also supply some of this money. We've discussed that we need stuff for fire trucks, for police, for ambulances, for the sanitation department, for streets. There's so much that has to go into the work that you people do. And so the monies that you have, my only concern would be that each one of those positions you weigh carefully for all the people of Portage. Because there's so many things that do need work. And like we discussed, that the costs that we have now or had a few years back are almost doubling every year. So the prices aren't going to go down. And so what repairs that you see that we've talked about through the night, and certainly I've come to the board before with my own problem, and there's other people that have problems as well. All I can ask you is do the best you can. And for the street department, You know, I'm used to plowing snow. I know what it's like. And once you start hitting the roads and you're plowing, there's so many things that you have to be concerned with. And being understaffed, unmanned, equipment breaking down that needs to be replaced. Whenever the gentlemen come down my road, which I only have a 450-foot road, I went out and talked to him. He made his first pass. He was coming back down to make a second pass, which he really didn't have to do. You know, all he had to do was make that street passable for us to get in and out. But I went out and I talked to him. And I thanked him. And he told me, he says, you know what? He says, I've been at this for about 2 days straight. And nobody's ever said a kind word to me. Or the fire department, police department, emergency services that we have, which they do an excellent job. For the street department, they're undermanned. And probably the fire and police too, they're probably undermanned some. They're individuals like us. They're doing the best they can with what they got to work with. And we need to continue to give them support.
Absolutely.
And that's about all I got to say.
Thank you.
Just thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Would anybody else like to speak to the council on anything?
I have something to read.
Okay.
So sorry, you guys. I hope I don't mess this up. I had a neighbor nearby that just sent this to me during the meeting, and I told her I would read it. One evening after one of the heavy snowstorms we had, I saw the police and fire department across the street from my elderly neighbor's house. She lives alone, so I went over to see what was going on and if I should try to contact her daughters. I was told a family member called asking for a well-being check. When the police arrived, they had to break into the breezeway door and were able to get to her through the open door to the home. She had fallen and was in a considerable amount of pain. I was impressed by their professionalism and kindness. From what I heard, the street department came out and plowed her driveway so the ambulance could get to the house. A policeman was shoveling a path from the house to the ambulance so the cart could have access to the house entrance. When they carried her out, she was wrapped in blankets and they had her head circled with a scarf to keep her warm. Before leaving, an officer told me that they had to enter through the locked door, so the frame was broken. He closed it the best he could and said that he had locked the inner door and fed the cat before leaving. If I saw any unusual activity around the house, to call the police and they would come right out. All those involved went above and beyond taking care of this unfortunate situation. Her daughter later informed me how quick the response time was. Kudos to all who assisted in this lady.
Nice.
And reading this, it goes to show just how well of a city we have, all the different departments working together, and what a team we have. And doing my best not to cry, but thank you, all of you, for that.
Yes, absolutely. Very nice.
Thank you for reading that, Gina.
I'm not crying.
Just two things. Jordan has her heart. She's back in her room, so say a
Awesome.
little prayer for her.
Go Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan Strong. That's really good. I just want to thank the council. This is a huge. Sometimes I wish, and I said this to Dan, I never saw that $8 million because it's caused other cities to fight. It's caused big divisions. And I think you can see that this council, even though it's stressful for them, they're trying to make the right decisions for this city. They really, truly are. And it's very tense and stressful at times. I wish it was triple that amount, but it isn't. And so we're going to make the best we can out of that money. It's a gift to us. It's a one-time gift. And so we have to be smart with it and think carefully because it's not gonna happen again. So I want to thank the council because it is stressful for you and you all want to make the right decision. I know you do. Your heart's in the right place, so thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
If there is nothing else to come before the council, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So I have one more thing. So sorry. So it's unrelated, but recently I sat down in the apartment complex of 2 Portage residents, and they were able to show me the bug bites on their legs, the mold, and the standing water in their apartment complex. And they told me that they've reached out and they were told that there's nothing that the city government can do to go after landlords or people who are putting some of our poorest residents in unacceptable living conditions. And so I guess my question is for Attorney Witten, is that true? Is there anything we can do? I mean,
That is a huge conversation. And so,
I'll save it for the next meeting.
yeah, I mean, so if something becomes uninhabitable, there are things we can do. But often when I get, and I'm not familiar with that specific situation, but sometimes I'll get asked questions like, the stove broke and my landlord won't fix the stove. That's a landlord-tenant dispute and is contractual. But if my property is an unsafe premises, it's uninhabitable, then there are things we can do. So if you have some more deets on that, want to shoot them to me, I'm more than happy to take a look at that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we got the Board of Health
I was about to say.
as well.
The Board of Health is probably gonna have the most.
We haven't had a tremendous amount out there.
I know.
But that's okay. It's a good idea.
But an ordinance sure could force some things.
Well, Nina just brought up a good point. I mean, we don't have a housing authority. Other cities do. If we had a housing authority, there would be more control, but we don't have one in Portage.
So just to remind everybody, the bridge going to Lakefront Park is closed. So you can go to the west and come up Hillcrest Road for now. We're still trying to work through that. That bridge, just to let you know, is a U.S. Steel bridge. It is not the City of Portage bridge. And so we are waiting. I've had many calls throughout the day for the last 3 days from U.S. Steel. They're trying to assess what's going on with the bridge, but it's closed to all traffic right now. So we will be putting stuff out on Facebook to let you know what's going on.
So how does that affect the business on the other side of that bridge? And the only way they now can get in?
Not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
Well, we're
Because that's
putting-
city
we're
property
putting
on the
a meeting
backside.
together.
There's another
We are
entrance on the
putting a
other
meeting
side.
together
Yeah.
to discuss that, but that isn't our jurisdiction. So we have to, we're just kind of like, we're putting people together to say, you must come together and talk about this. We have a business on the other side of that.
But the road getting to that business is the city's, correct?
It's
No.
accessible. No.
No,
not
Hillcrest
from
Road
Hill-
is not the
not
city.
Not
from
from the open air? That
No.
backside?
that where that
Part
gate
of it
is.
for
Yeah.
the open
Then it stops
areas.
being ours.
Ah,
So
okay.
that gets to my question.
Mm-hmm.
I know I saw a few comments about this on Facebook, and this is more of an Ogden Dunes question, not a Portage question. But if the tracks are blocked and there
That's
needs
the
to be
other
emergency,
problem.
are they able to at least use the bridge if there needs
No.
to? They can't use it at all.
It's structurally unsound.
Okay. Because I know I saw a few
Looking
people
pretty
asking
rough
that
for a
from Ogden
while.
Dunes, and I mean
Yeah.
that's more of an Ogden Dunes government question, not us. But I wasn't sure if they could just use it in an emergency situation. We gotta get an ambulance across
There's
right now.
multiple
Yeah.
concerns. Yes, Chief?
I had some conversation with Ogden News Police Chief. He said that in the case of an emergency, they can get us over there. So,
Okay.
we've had those discussions. So obviously, regular traffic isn't open, and as you said, you can get through by the Ogden News side. The issue would be if there's a train blocking it. But I'm told
Right.
that in the event of an emergency, we can get there, and I believe Ogden News is also assisting with any calls north that might be on our side.
To be able to go to the lakefront.
They're
Yeah.
helping us out because we have a further response time due to the bridge, so we get some interagency
Got it.
cooperation going on.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
That could even get worse though as the summer goes on and people start going to Lakefront Park. That's why we're having this meeting, to try to figure out with the police, fire, with the National Park Service, with US Steel. I mean, US Steel's been very upfront. They call me
usually are.
multiple times a day.
Yeah.
But it is their bridge and they have to fix it, so we have to see what
Or at least maybe the company on the other side needs to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure US Steel's gonna negotiate that one out.
Okay, everybody, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
All in favor
Adjourn.
signify by saying aye.
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 Oh, for heaven's sake. Is there a motion in this?
I'm